Hello everybody, welcome back to some more Fallout Equestria. Okay, it's been a solid little minute since we've read some of this, so finally time to get back into it. I'm gonna start here in a couple minutes here. Well, probably like 3 or something. Yeah, by the end of the hour, we'll start it. I do say. Oh shoot, I forgot. I forgot to start the ambiance. Whoopsies. Alright, there we go. Even if it's not much, something's better than nothing. Yo, what's up? What's up, folks? Welcome back. After this, probably gonna continue doing more Amnesia the Bunker. Hopefully try to finish that up. Because I'll tell you, all those bottles of oil are absolutely awesome. It's perfect. It just works. Nothing scares me in that. Well, actually, that's honestly, I'm gonna be honest. With the ability to reload a save, it's more forgiving than I would have expected it to be. This series is up to 43, 44 chapters long. And yeah, we're only on chapter 30, so we're gonna be here a while. Today is going to be a shorter reading, though. We're doing 2 chapters today. I believe this one is Phil. If it won't find me, as you can see here, it goes on for quite a while. But yeah, we're just reading chapter 30 and chapter 31 today. What's up? Welcome. Welcome. Alright. Within the next minute, I will begin. Oh, out of curiosity, folks, let me test something, okay? So I'm just going to give you a number. Like, I'm going to mess with my mic settings here real quickly. You can tell me which you prefer. Okay, so this is with noise suppression on. This is how I sound. I sound like this. I'm going to turn it off in 3, 2, 1. This is how I sound now. Which one do you all like the most? Number 1 or number 2? Number 1? Number 2? Number 1? Number 2? I'm not sure which one sounds the best. If you folks even notice a difference. Just out of curiosity. Get some input in there. This is with noise suppression on. This is with noise suppression off. Number 1. This one. 1. A lot of ones. Okay, beautiful. I love to hear it. Okay, so I'm gonna give you all whoever plans on sticking around here. I hope you all will linger around for a bit. The last rating of this was a bit wild. So in short, y'all remember Trixie, right? Y'all remember the great and powerful Trixie? Okay, well, in this series, the great and powerful Trixie became the great and powerful Gestalt consciousness. So... yeah, you can hear the air in the second one? Yeah. Oh, man. But yeah, Trixie became a hive mind. That's how, if y'all have been paying attention, that's where all the false alicorns are kind of created from. It's like Fallout's FEV, right? Yeah, the great and powerful Gestalt consciousness. I know. I know. It's sad. But, yeah, we're just gonna jump right into it, and now they're doing a side quest for a hive mind. So... yeah, alright, so, Chapter 30, Hunters and Prey. What are you on the lookout for? 2 very angry types of movements. Slow, lumbering, powerful movements, and jerky, erratic, excitable movements, both coming for the kill. Yeah, I know, it's very sad. Poor Trixie became... more Trixie. Virtues. My first real advice out of the stable was to find my virtue. Well, no, it was to find a weapon, armor, and friends. And as daunting a task as that seemed, I believe I had succeeded admirably. It was the advice that followed to find that defining positive characteristic that would get me through the darkest horrors that the equestrian wasteland could throw at me without losing myself. That still eluded me. Instead, I substituted other goals, other quests. I was driven to make this blasted world a better place. A brighter place. For the ponies trapped within it. I know, it's very sad. The great and powerful hive mind Trixie. Honestly? Yeah, it was interesting. It was very cool. Very cool introduction. Yeah, by the way, background ambiance is, currently Fallout New Vegas. The desert sound effects, so that's currently what we're listening to in the background. So, I think the gunshots are fitting. Anyway, I felt all my efforts had just hit a wall. Ants, friends, ants, France. Red-Eye was just too smart, too devious, and too well organized. Also, Red-Eye is, pretty much a dictator of raiders and slaves, essentially. I underestimated him at every turn, and he used it against me with skill, approaching panic. Even his seemingly insane claim to approaching godhood was backed by a crafty and altogether horrifying plan. The sheer cruelty, the coldly calculated butchering of unicorns in an act that would surpass murder, struck a blow to my very soul. And yet, I could already envision his argument. What is the suffering death of a few dozen or possibly even 100 unicorns today for generations of safety and peace for millions in the future? Ooh, I tasted bile. The goddess was insane. The goddess is Trixie, by the way. It's an old story. It's an old story. This is over 12 years old, so, you know, would be a little bit respectful towards the story. Anyways, the goddess is Trixie. This is Trixie right here. When it refers to goddess, that is Trixie. The great and powerful hive mind Trixie. The collective. And actually, also technically Twilight as well. Sorry, I forgot that detail. Whoopsies. Yikes. Oof. Insane. And yet, she was effectively untouchable, immensely powerful, and her army of minions were considerably smaller in number than Red-Eyes were amongst the most formidable opponents in the entire wasteland. And they were completely devoted, if not directly controlled by her whims, and her whims amounted to our extinction. No, it's an old story. This story was posted to FimFiction back in 2013, but the story is older than that. And she was such a potent telepath that even if I could come up with a plan, she would rip it from my mind before I could get close enough to her to implement it. We were racing apotheosis, and we were losing. I love that name, though. That is such a good name. I felt the darkness closing in oppressively. If ever I needed a virtue to hold to, it was now. But even virtues could turn on you. They could go astray, become warped or perverted. Watcher had told me of the 6 greatest virtues of pony kind: kindness, laughter, generosity, honesty, loyalty, and magic. Although he made it clear that there were many others and that my own was likely not on that sacred list, I had quipped that I could possibly collect broken, wrecked versions of each of these. I was doing far better at that, it seemed, than finding ponies of true virtue. Still, I had been joking. Now I had met the goddess, the thing that Trixie was. And I knew I had witnessed the epitome of the corrupted virtue of magic. All I needed to do was find corrupted kindness, and I'd have a set. Oh, by the way, this is Anytime you see something like this is the hive mind. This is the great and powerful hive mind speaking. Anything written in all caps like this is the hive mind. Oh, but you have met corrupted kindness, little Pip. The cruel, sweet voice of the goddess blasted through my head, swarmed with a chorus of whispers, mostly agreeing. The weight of her thoughts on my mind was heavy, almost suffocating. It's you. No, that was not right. She couldn't be right. I was better than that. I had to be better than that. But even as I fiercely denied the goddess's sadistic suggestion, my mind conjured up doubts and demons of us seeking to prove her right. Yup, Trixie the hive mind. I had saved the slaves from old Appaloosa only to abandon them to the care of a town that traded with slavers. I had slaughtered the raiders who... Oh, wow. See, we don't say violent stuff like that. We skim past that crud here. And hunted the blue pony in Manhattan, only to walk away and leave her to her fate once the immediate threat had passed. There's quite a lot of graphic context in the story. How many times had I inserted myself into a situation, tried to help, then left? Should I count all of Philadelphia as a victim of my kindness? I remember the image in the mirror reflecting my soul was twisted kindness that I had seen there. Was it a monster? No, this was sick and poisoned thinking. It was the goddess mercilessly tormenting me where I was weak. I had a virtue, a good and true one, just waiting for me to discover it. I had to. We stepped out of Mariponi's most intact structure and into the angry daylight, for the goddess's alicorns guiding us back to where the Sky Bandit had landed. Also, basically Fallout's equivalent of FEV creates false alicorns. False alicorns, pretty much. Not real alicorns, but stronger. They have wings, they have horns, pretty much, bottom line. But they're not real alicorns, they're fake. But powerful. My pit buck began to click at me. The balefire bomb had been detonated underground here. The radiation bleeding off of the Splendid Valley sinkhole was nowhere close to the horror of the Philadelphia crater, at least not above ground. A nearby wall held what appeared to be a map of the building above a pair of water fountains. My pit buck's clicking sped up ominously as I brought it close to them, but I was more interested in scanning in the map for future reference. I suspected I might need it. All around us, alicorns watched silently from behind crumbled walls or stood amongst broken pillars and collapsed rubble. Their silent presence was eerie and sinister. Thriving? Velvet Remedy asked in a hushed voice, dipping her head. It feels more like they haunt this place. I nodded, lowering my voice to reply almost instinctually, as if the alicorn's silence demanded we speak softly. And have you noticed that they haven't said anything? Not one of them had telepathically spoken a word since we encountered them in Splendid Valley. In previous encounters, they had been boastfully chatty. I think the proximity to the goddess is overwhelming them. Their individual minds are being drowned out by hers. This close, they become little more than drones. Not that I cared much for their individual personalities, Calamity chimed in, whispering, seeing as they were all variations of goddess's great rah-rah us. Y'all are insects. Silence isn't entirely ungolden. After a moment of thought, he continued, I reckon it's the taint. Splendid Valley's ripe with it. He pointed out, seemed to be able to communicate with her so-called children outside, but nothing like this, and not with normal folk except in very special cases like Red-Eye. But here, she's in our heads like it weren't nothing. I'm betting this whole valley is a massive amplifier to her. Wonderful. Well then, don't any pony think anything about what we do now until we're out of this goddess's forsaken place. Calamity barked a laugh at my choice of phrasing. The alicorns of course said nothing. They wove us through the rubble to the flat of asphalt, which had once been a landing zone for sky chariots. The Sky Bandit sat waiting for us on the roof. Firelight danced and hooted at our return. Velvet Remedy stopped. Anyway, Calamity hesitated, his ears perking as he watched the bird. "Hold up there," he whispered, putting a foreleg out to block me. The 4 alicorns kept walking towards the Sky Bandit, either unaware or unconcerned that their charges have stopped following. "That sounds like a warning." Another alicorn dropped out of the sky behind us and raised her shield. "It is," Velvet Remedy breathed. The 4 alicorns trotted up to the Sky Bandit, the lead one beginning to turn towards us unexpectedly. When the asphalt around them erupted in blasts of magical energy, all 4 alicorns were killed, 3 instantly, with 2 of them melting into goo, the 4th collapsing several yards away, missing multiple limbs and bleeding to death with a pitiful whinny. Velvet Remedy's horn flared up as her anesthetic spell allowed the creature to spend her last seconds without pain. Oh, I do read everything y'all say. I just don't comment on it because I have no interest in it. The alicorns in the ruins around us stumbled in unison. 2 more fell as shafts of colored light sliced through the air. Velvet Remedy muttered something, closing her eyes as her horn flared and 5 small flickering orbs of energy shot from the tip. One of the orbs drifted swiftly over my head and floated there. One stayed above Velvet. The other sought out Calamity, Zenith, and Pyrolite and hovered over them like tiny guardians. "New spell?" "I've been here, hello." Velvet Remedy nodded, saying, "I'll explain later." As she looked for a way to run, the alicorns in the ruins were bringing up their shields. The air was filling with magical energy blasts. A pack of hellhounds was charging across the tops of the rubble, moving with terrifying speed to engage the alicorns under the covering fire of more hellhounds and the hellhounds. Oh, shoot. Okay, by the way, hellhounds, I'm pretty sure the equivalent, Fallout series equivalent of death claws. But instead of being, lizards, it's, the diamond dogs from the, series. Or whatever the heck they're called. The dog things that tunnel underground. Pretty sure. Pretty sure that's, the inspiration for the, hellhounds. What's up, folks? They'd mined the landing pad. The mine conjured images of hellhounds digging up from beneath until less than half an inch of asphalt separated their holes from the world above, then wonder gluing the mines to that thin barrier, filling in the holes behind them. "Back inside," I shouted. "Regroup first. Get out of the line of fire." I turned only to find we were blocked by the shielded alicorn standing behind us. Beyond her, the doorway back into Maripony stood dark and empty. The concrete steps leading up to it tore apart explosively as a hellhound burst out of the ground behind us. Massive claws ripped through the alicorn shield and tore huge chunks of meat from her side. As she turned to fight it, the alicorn almost got a spell off before the hellhound ripped his claws through her face, felling her. Insolent curse! A high-pitched whistle blasted through the air and through my head, the goddess projecting both mentally and magically through the ruins of Maripony's air raid sirens. I pressed my hooves to my ears, but it didn't help. I was unable to think, unable to move under the assault. Calamity, Velvet Remedy, and Zenith all did the same, only the zebra seeming to get any respite from the effect. The hellhound immediately fell, clutching his ears, howling in pain. The other charged in pain, then turned, fleeing blindly back into the valley. The one in front of us did not fare as well. 3 alicorns descended upon us, dropping their shields as they skewered the ambushing creature, driving glowing horns through his thick hide. One of the 3 was hit by a lancing beam of light blue energy and dissolved, a hellhound sniper who was either far enough away not to be debilitated by the goddess's sonic telepathic attack, or who had protection from it. Clearly, not all these creatures were poor shots. An orange beam of light hit Calamity, striking him in the wing. For a brief moment, his whole body glowed orange, becoming a Calamity-shaped lamp. The little orb over his head popped, and the glow receded back to his wing before evaporating, leaving a hole in his left wing that I could put my hoof through. Velvet Remedy's spell had saved him from being turned to ash. My Pegasus friend collapsed in shock, his scream drowned out by the goddess's attack. The siren stopped. The attack continued, but now the flurry of poorly aimed beams of magical energy were replaced with a small number of expertly aimed ones. The attacks flashed uselessly against the alicorn shields in the wake of the sonic attack. The hellhounds didn't charge the base again. Sometimes y'all talk about the dumbest crud. I just want you all to know that from the bottom of my heart. I really should have worn my old armor. Calamity grunted as Velvet Remedy knelt over him, her horn glowing as she tried not to cry. Hey, at least I am bleeding out, right? The magical energy had warped the flesh of his wing around the wound and incinerated the feathers. Hush now, she ordered. Quiet now. Save your strength and let your medical body do her work. From her pained expression, I could tell it was bad. Another bolt of energy struck the rubble we had taken refuge behind. The alicorns had flown out to strike down the snipers, but every time they got close, the hellhounds disappeared into the ground. All they were managing to do is get drawn further from the base and increasingly separated. The goddess had begun recalling several, either suspecting or experiencing a trap. All the time. It happens. It's like that. Did you see how all the creatures reacted when the first four were killed? Zenith asked as she hunted through the pouch of bottles and ingredients. If the Trixie monster experiences each alicorn's death, perhaps the death of many at once is painful or disorienting to her. I nodded, filing that away for examination when we were safely outside the goddess's range. I looked to Velvet and asked, will he be okay? And will he be able to fly again? Velvet took longer to answer than I would have preferred. I can repair the structural damage to his wing with my mending spell, but I can't heal the wound. He'll need at least one extra strength restoration potion to begin to heal properly. More if he wants to fly again anytime this week. And right now, we do not even possess a healing potion. She looked at me sadly. If you'll remember, I used up all of our medical supplies patching you lot up inside stable 2. I felt a pang of guilt. Quite a spell you got there, Calamity praised, resolutely ignoring his doctor's orders. You saved my life. Only the slightest smile touched Velvet Remedy's frowning expression. Yes, I had hoped to barter for more medical supplies from Dr. Helpinghoof, but with Tenpony Tower surrounded by Red Eye's forces, he wasn't willing to part with anything more than a few healing bandages, so I spent part of my time there learning a couple new spells. A disintegration ward seemed prudent. Whoa. Zenith pulled out a vial and offered it to Velvet. She took it and wrapped it with telekinetic sheath. Okay, let's stop with that emote, or else I'm just gonna start timing out people. Okay? Okay. That's right, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. There we go. Velvet took it and wrapped it in a telekinetic sheath, keeping it floating nearby. She scowled as she added, unfortunately, this wing needs more than my spells and some bandages to heal. Well, that's technically spam, though, so keep it in mind. Don't spam. Don't do that, Crow. That's annoying. Super annoying. I'm going to need to cut the warped flesh away before I can start rebuilding and mending the bones of your wing. Velvet Remedy insisted, remorsefully addressing Calamity. This is a magical damage. If I don't remove all the affected flesh, your wing will never heal properly. You're going to bleed a lot when I do so. But Zenith has given me something that should reduce the blood loss, she frowned. This would be excruciating, so I'm going to have to use my anesthetic spell. You're not going to be able to move for the better part of an hour. Woo. Yeah, usually by the end of the day, I typically am. But, you know, it is what it is. I'll get over it. A beam of pink light struck above the doorway into Maripony. A cinder block's worth of the wall glowed and dissolved. Oh my god. Zenith turned to me. You made the wagon fly before. Can you fly us all the way from here? I shook my head. I'd been asking myself the same thing. I can, but floating myself is incredibly draining. I don't think I'd be able to get us very far, and even if I could, I can't move us very fast. And all those hellhound snipers would need is one good shot to blow us up. Then we are trapped here until we find medical supplies for the winged one. Dang, girl, have you just not learned our names yet? I'm Calamity. My apologies, Calamity. I am not used to thinking in names or to being. The ex-slave zebra was clearly having difficulty putting her feelings into words. On the level of familiarity where names are appropriate for me to utter. Bruh. I could have sworn I'd heard her refer to at least one of us by name before, but now that I thought about it, I couldn't place an instance. Alright. Alright. You're gonna be timed out for a little bit. I'm gonna time you out. No more emojis. No more emojis. Alright? Alright. You're just gonna go away for like 5 minutes, alright? You'll be back. You'll be back in 5 minutes. No more emojis. That crud is all so spammy. Just 5 minutes, you'll survive. A little. I know. It goes down quick. I gotta start putting my foot down. I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of it. I could have sworn I'd heard her refer to at least one of us by name before, but now that I thought about it, I couldn't place an instance. The closest I could come was her questioning how Calamity got his name. Only the largest figures in her life had been given names. Red Eye and Stern, who ruled those who had enslaved her, or figures of legend like Doom Bunny and Nightmare Moon. If you were timed out, you wouldn't be talking. You can be. There's times I've definitely considered doing it to you. She kept her silence for how many years? I knew how impossible it had seemed to form friendships with my peers in Stable 2. Having been the awkward blank flank with an alcoholic mother, being a zebra in the Philadelphia slave pits would have been even worse. I wonder if she even bothered to learn the names of most of her tormentors. Is this the way she had come to identify ponies in her mind? Do you believe there may be medical supplies inside here? Zenith asked, looking towards Maripony. I checked my Pitbuck's auto-mapping feature as well as the scan of the wall map. To my chagrin, Maripony's medical clinic was in the section that had collapsed into the crater. Anything that had been in there would be crushed, scattered, and probably tainted. There were bathrooms that might have medical boxes, but would they be stocked with the sort of supplies Calamity needed? I felt it was doubtful, and I wasn't eager to try. The horror of what lurked in there and what she had done curdled my blood. I knew the goddess needed us, but what if she changed her mind? I didn't want us to suffer the same fate as Twilight Sparkle. There's a hospital a few miles from here, Calamity announced, surprising all of us. Part of the gem mine in town that served this place when they shut down the mines. The town was abandoned, but they opened parts of it all back up to house the ponies who worked at Maripony and their families. I didn't ask how he knew any of this. Calamity had been surviving the Equestrian wasteland for many years before we had met. Who knew what rumors and scraps of information he had learned? I was content just to be thankful for the change in our luck. Another shot struck the wall I was hiding behind, causing it to glow and melt. I scooted my tail to another bit of cover. We weren't going anywhere until they stopped taking so many pot shots in our direction. And there should be plenty of rooftops to hide out on, well, a hill, Calamity assured us. Ain't perfect, but probably the safest place from the hellhounds. If we can get there. We all knew we were talking about several miles travel over a hellhound-infested, irradiated, and taint-soaked landscape. Just point the way, Calamity, I said, sounding more sure than I felt. I have a plan. You always do, Calamity grinned. Just get us to Old Olneigh and we'll be fine. The hellhounds seemed to lose interest after about an hour. It made me wonder if there was a larger purpose behind the attack or if this had just been sport. I stood on the railing, ringing Mariponi's short water tower, my binoculars floating in the front of my face. From here, I could just make out the shapes of Old Olneigh in the distance, resting peacefully, an elevated highway passed nearby, going nowhere. The highway had collapsed less than half a mile beyond the off-ramp to the town, leaving a line of rubble and crushed wagons that time and the valley had mostly succeeded erasing. Dang right, another adventure for sure. Turning my gaze towards the horizon, I glimpsed a shadow that may have been Ponyville. Beyond that, the sky turned hazy and thick from the smoke of the ever-free fires. Walking around the rim, I realized I could spot 3 of those needle-like towers rising into the cloudy heavens above. I was fairly sure that one of them was the same one I had spotted from the outskirts of Cloudsdale, but I hadn't seen the others before. Coming full circle, I looked back again at Old Olneigh, then traced the path we would have to travel to get there. A set of train tracks that stretched from Old Olneigh to Mariponi, crossing rocky flatland with only minor undulations, save for a gulch filled with hints of scraggly vegetation and sick, stagnant water. I couldn't make out any details, but the plants beneath the bridge moved as if they were much stronger, wind blowing down the gulch than the faint breeze that stirred my mane. Hey, just so you know, it could have been a lot longer, okay? I just needed to make an example, that's all. More alicorns were beginning to return. The ones already here had returned to their silent lurking, seeming to pay us no attention. I was expecting either the goddess or her alicorns to attempt another escort, but it was almost as if they had forgotten where we were. We were here, look. Yet that was impossible. They kept looking right at us. Maybe the goddess was gouging. What? Gauging? Gouging? I have no clue. What we would do next? Nah, you're good. I had to pick somebody. Unfortunately, the latter picked you. Yet that was impossible. They kept looking right at us. Maybe God was guiding what we would do next. Or maybe she was recovering. She had lost quite a few of her children over the space of an hour. It's one thing to do an emoji every now and then, but when you just keep... Yeah, you keep doing it, like, you just change it doesn't matter if you just do one emoji. It's when you keep spamming one emoji every message, you know? Like, you just keep going down the list, you know? It's okay to use one every now and then, but just keep spamming them, you know? Gets a little repetitive, you know? I wasn't the only one who found this behavior bizarre. Howdy, Calamity said, trotting shakily up to one of the dark purple alicorns and waving a hoof in her face. Remember us? The ponies y'all want to find your stuff for ya? Got a hurt wing here if one of you would care to hitch yourself up. We can all be out of your mane that much faster. Yeah, I don't... I'll do you one better. I'll give you several minutes. How about that? Since you asked so nicely. There you go. You enjoy that one. You two can both share the same amount of time. You asked to be timed out for 1 minute. Nah, dude, I'm gonna do you one better. I'll give you 5 minutes. I'm courteous like that, you know? They asked to be timed out. That's not on me. This is weird, right? Maybe the goddess is taking a great and powerful nap, Zenith suggested. Calamity snorted a laugh that ended in a wince. Hey Zenith, Calamity suddenly announced. I never said it, but I wanted y'all to know I'm glad you're free and all. Merciful Celestia, Calamity. Awkward much? Zenith looked at him quietly, then said simply, thank you. Calamity chewed on that, then tried again. So, those potions you brew, any of them good for strengthening armor or helping with equipment maintenance? No, Zenith answered, seeming to understand his intention. She offered politely, I do know many poisonous brews should you be looking to make your bullets more lethal. I felt for him. He was trying to connect with a new member of our group. He had been the most welcoming of her, trusting my judgment, but since then, they hadn't really bonded the quiet way Zenith and Velvet Remedy had, or even established this sort of relationship. Would rivalry be the best word? Grudging respect? That Zenith and Steelhoof shared? They were friendly acquaintances, and I suspected Calamity was trying to find a way to turn that into true friendship. Calamity trotted around the alicorn. She turned lethargically, keeping him in her sight. I'm tempted to start shooting him. Take out as many as we can. Velvet shot him a look of alarm, and then he backed down with a grin. I didn't say I was gonna. I just said it was tempted. Zenith shook her head. We should make the most of this respite to implement the little one's plan without interference. I floated Calamity's Enclave armor out of the Sky Bandit as well as Spitfire's Thunder and our other vital equipment. I didn't want anyone trotting up to it when the area around the passenger wagon could still be mined. As I placed our equipment in the center of a large husk of capsized wall, Velvet called us to gather close. Pyrelight landed on her back, puffing herself up and looking important. As a precaution, Velvet was going to cast another ward against disintegration upon us. I had been watching Calamity when his orb burst, but I hadn't realized the ones over the rest of us had disappeared simultaneously. I can cast the spell over multiple friends, Velvet explained as she recast her spell, but it collapses after any of you are hit, so please be dears and try not to get shot. Okay, well in that case, Velvet, why not just cast one individually per person? Who's to say you all have to share the same spell, you know? She turned towards me, especially you. I really hate this idea. You're too vulnerable. Why is it that you are always the one in the most danger, little Pip? But she knew the answer. We'd been over this before. All my friends gathered on the slab of concrete as I wrapped them and it in a field of levitation. Velvet turned to help Calamity into the Enclave armor, being extremely careful with his partially mended wing. She was wearing the zebra armor again, insisting we minimize the risks as much as possible, particularly since Little Pip seems insistent on taking more than her fair share. I floated the chunk of mare pony's wall upward, not stopping until it was at least 4 stories above me. I was counting on the concrete to shield them from the Hellhound's magical energy weapons. I understood Velvet Remedy's concern, but this time it couldn't be helped. My telekinetic magic had grown powerful enough that I could float this large section of the wall, and all of them on it easily. But adding myself to the mix would create such a strain that I would be lucky to make it halfway without suffering burnout. I agreed to lighten myself enough to prevent my hoofsteps from triggering mines or announcing my presence to any hellhounds who might be lurking just beneath the surface. That was all. In the end, Velvet Remedy had to accept me. It had to be me. I started forward, moving around the ruins of Mare Pony. The slab of wall with my friends on it floated along high above me. While I would not say much, I was grateful to be able to take the risk in their place. Was this something corrupting kindness would do? As soon as I had that thought, I pushed it out of my mind. I couldn't afford self-doubt right now. As I reached the cracked edge of the Maripony base, I hesitated. My pip-buck was click-clicking, warning me of the radiation, but there was no sound, no special display on my EFS designed to warn me of the taint. I have no clue. When 5 minutes is up, it's up automatically. Old Olneigh suddenly felt a very long way away. Splotches of red on my EFS compass alerted me to more threats. I floated the zebra rifle close and... Yup, I can. To sats, even as I trotted, I was pacing myself advice from a book, The Egghead's Guide to Running, that I used in Twilight Sparkle's Athenium, during one of the hours where Homage was playing DJ Pone 3 and giving me a chance to catch my breath. I had several miles to go and I wanted to make the distance as quickly as possible, which surprisingly meant not pushing myself just as fast as I could. A spiny dart hit my side, bouncing harmlessly off my armored utility barding. My targeting spell latched onto the first bloat sprite, then the second. I fired off a 3-round burst at each, and the taint swollen bugs erupted in flame as they fell to the ground. I continued to trot along the tracks, quickening my pace just a little to wake up for seconds lost while shooting. The wall holding my friends floating high above me, keeping pace, we were nearly nearing the gulch. My skin was beginning to itch in strange places. I fretted, wondering if it was nerves or an allergic reaction, or worse, the first symptoms of taint. My EFS compass filled with red, dozens of little lights appeared, then more. The gulch was swarming with hostile life. Yeah, now you get to see what it's like, the experience. Consider it an honor. The EFS compass filled with red, dozens of little lights appeared, then more. The gulch was swarming with hostile life. I trotted onto the tracks and prepared to break into a gallop, hoping that the rather rickety wooden bridge would offer me protection. Something bobbed up over the edge of the gulch. I shuddered, staring at the taint-mutated thing. It looked like a plant. It's huge, head covered in gas sacs that allowed it to float, the stalk drooping down and dragging behind it. A sphincter in the center of its head tightened and then spit foul goop at me. Ah, yes, reminds me of the bloat flies. Beautiful. The spore-laden influence splattered the ground near my hooves, sending up a shocking stank. Ah, how beautiful. Beautiful. The equestrian wasteland never seemed to run out of new vileness. Several nearly identical floating spitter plants were moving up out of the gorge towards me. Bro, they move? The plants move? I slipped into sats again, locking targets on the closest two, sending 2 3-round bursts into the sphincter heads of each monster as a third sprayed its filth at me. I felt the crust splash against my armor and coat burning where I had touched and causing me to drop my targeting spell as I gagged on the stench. Beautiful. The 2 floaters I had hit ignited spectacularly, the gas pods that gave them mobility rupturing into flame-like miniature versions of the Pinkie Pie balloons. 3 more of the floating spitter plants rushed up from the gulch, one hitting the burning form on the first one and igniting explosively itself. The second spit its spore sewage at me, while the third charged towards me as it intended to latch on and devour. I cantered to the side, dodging the spit, and bucked sats back up, targeting the charging one first and then the one which had successfully hit me. I'm always watching you. I just don't always respond. Bullets burst from the silenced muzzle of the zebra rifle. The 2 targeted plants became flailing columns of fire, but the floaters kept coming. I dropped the targeting spell and brought it back up immediately, targeting 2 more. One of the burning plants spit at me, its spore sewage now on fire. Mercifully, the burning crust splashed across the tracks behind me, missing by a yard. My skin was beginning to really hurt where I had been hit. I dropped out of sats again and shook, flinging the goop away from me, then lifted the rifle and brought up the targeting spell, firing again at the advancing half-burning herd of plants. One of the burning floater plants trumbled back into the gulch. I could hear more gas splatters catching fire and bursting as rapid chain reactions quickly set several hundred yards of the gulch ablaze. I sprinted, galloping across the wooden bridge as flames from the gulch began to lick at it. Fierce heat and choking reek buffeted me as I forced myself across, my eyes stinging. Several of the plants in conflagration below spit burning spore sewage at me. Most hit the bridge, setting it properly ablaze. Burning effluent struck my left flank, my hind leg, and saddlebags catching fire. I bit down knowing that the scream could bring hellhounds. I pushed, running as hard as I could, my leg in searing pain. I was pouring concentration into levitating the wall now, the physical agony threatening to break my spell. The fire was spreading up my side, it hurt to breathe. Flames licked at my hooves, burning them. I did scream. I was almost across the burning bridge, the gulch below a writhing river of fire, when the hellhound tore out of the ground, alerted by my scream. But he was far enough ahead of me that Calamity could target him from the platform above. 4 blasts of magical energy knifed down from above, melting the hellhound into colored sludge. I began to lower the wall, choking on the smoke and the stench of my own burning coat, knowing I wouldn't be able to hold it much longer. It was 3 yards above the ground when the pain overwhelmed me and I dropped it. I made it to the end of the bridge in a stumbling gallop and collapsed, rolling on the ground, screaming as I put out the fire on my left side, screaming. Oh man, itchy, itchy, itchy. Itch, 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 nosy itch. Just get to Old Olneigh, and everything will be fine, Zenth claimed, her exotic voice taking a mocking tone as she peered at the town below through my binoculars. We had made it to the top of the overpass and were looking down at Old Olneigh from above. From here, we could see dozens of hellhounds lurking about the town. A couple were even on rooftops. God dang it, why do you ponies ever listen to me? Calamity asked. Ain't little Pip. Y'all know all my plans ain't worth shit. I flopped over, telekinetically floating the binoculars to my eyes. I still couldn't feel anything. Velvet Remedy's anesthetic spell doing its work, but that didn't prevent me from using my levitation spell. In fact, it almost made it easier, and I had spent the second half making myself light enough for Firelight to carry while I floated the others in the wall behind us. The older unicorn had wasted no time in wrapping me with the rest of our medical bandages as she scolded me on taking on yet another gruesome attack for the team. But with the pain gone and out of the choking smoke, I felt assured that I had done the right thing. There was something wrong with me. I could feel it. Where the spit had hit me, something crawling beneath my skin that even Velvet's spell couldn't cover. I'd floated my own forehoof so I could check my picked up medical diagnosis, and it confirmed I was suffering from something, but it couldn't determine what that something was. It wasn't poison, and I checked clean for spore infestation. No, the spore sewage of those floating plants had been laced with taint. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Yeah, right? Itchy, itchy, itchy. Uh-oh, that's not good. I never believed I could make the distance without exposure to taint. I had never been that lucky. Rather, it would be a matter of how much exposure and how quickly taint took its toll. I knew that the society keeping 10 Pony Tower secrets possessed a spell that could purge taint itself, although I didn't know if it could reverse the damage caused by it. That would be my hope. The ruins of Old Olneigh included several nearly intact buildings, one of which was the hospital. Sitting on the roof was a contraption I had never seen before, colored with a pink and yellow candy cane with periwinkle. Propeller blades affixed to the top. What's that? I asked, pointing it out. Yeah. Woo. I believe that's an Earth Pony Skywagon, Calamity said. Trust it in Earth Pony to find a way to fly. I could use that. No more running on the ground as I levitated the others in safety. Do you think it still works? I asked hopefully. Yeah, no, not a lot of people stick around for these. Nope, Calamity said, deflating my daydream of floating everyone behind him while keeping safely off the ground as in the Earth Pony contraption. But then he added, but I'll bet I can fix her up so she will. Hope resurrected. Perfect, because that's our plan B. I looked over the rest of the town, noting a strange glowing antenna array amongst multiple crates and barricades on the roof, across the street from the hospital, and a scattering of old military vehicles on the road. This was a capsized wagon with the metal boxes scattered around it and a heavy tank half sunken into the ground. Instead of a normal earth tone or camouflage coloration, the tank had been painted in bright multicolored stripes. The paint job was old and faded, but still added a surprisingly splash of color to the town. I laughed. That tank looks like a rainbow. I could think of no logical reason for it to be colored that way. Really? Is that why they look like that? Zenith asked. At my questioning expression, she explained. I have never seen a rainbow. I first found the zebra's assertion impossible, then tragically sad, then curious. I looked up at the clouds that sealed off the sky. I'd seen it rain here. I'd seen it rain a lot, in fact, but I had never seen a rainbow outside except in posters and illustrations. In fact, the only real rainbows I would have seen were in Stable 2. When the apple orchard sprayers were on, the Overmare's artificial sunlight would stream through the mist, creating shimmering arcs of beautiful color. I used to beg my mother to let me play in them when I was younger. She even let me once. Alright, peace. Thanks for stopping by. Yup, Calamity said in answer to my thoughts. To get a real rainbow, you need either magic or direct sunlight. Ain't been a proper rainbow in the Equestrian wastelands, probably ever. He thought a moment, then added, except maybe in the Everfruit Forest since the cloud cover gets mighty fragmented there. I exchanged looks with Velvet Remedy as the knife slipped into my heart. I never thought to miss them until I realized we were living in a world without rainbows. I'm gonna shoot him, Calamity announced before picking up Spitfire's thunder in his teeth and aiming it over the concrete railing of the overpass, taking aim for one of the hellhounds in the town below. No, hissed Zenith, pushing Spitfire's thunder with her hoof. If you shoot them, then you will let them know we are here. Wait, Velvet Remedy started to suggest. But my focus was on Calamity and Zenith, and their focus was on each other. Calamity started to say something through the gun bit, then put the weapon down to properly argue. Yup, I figure I can pick a couple off before they realize where the shots are coming from. Then more as they come out of those buildings to investigate. Let them come running towards us. We got plenty of space between here and there to snap them off in. I was already pulling out my own sniper rifle, levitating my anesthetized body into an optimal sniping position. Gosh dang, English is hard sometimes. Sheesh. Ugh. Little Pip, wait, Velvet said, but her next words were cut off by our zebra companion. Are you fools? Zenith trotted in place. This is not how you behave in enemy territory. Our enemy outnumbers us, and these are not stupid raiders but clever opponents. You do not engage them wantonly. Yo, what's up? Calamity cocked his head. And what would you have us do? Hide and seek? Hide and sneak. Yes, Zenith nodded firmly. Be alert, move fast, keep downwind and to the shadows. Avoid them whenever possible, kill only those we cannot avoid, and do so swiftly and silently. Gosh, dude. Calamity looked to me. I say we take out what we can do so from a distance. Less of them means less to worry about flying up close. Zenith sighed, stepping between Calamity and me, facing him. Listen to me. I have watched you. You are a hunter. You know how to hunt. But do you know how to be prey? Calamity took a step back, lifting the bug-eyed visor of the Enclave armor to stare back at her directly. I ain't got no interest in being prey. Well, I've spent most of my life as prey, and I know how to survive when you are outnumbered and chased, Zenith informed me. Perhaps you should listen. Calamity again looked past her to me. Little Pip, your call. Zenith turned towards me too. I weighed the options, but ultimately the tactics I knew won out. I agree with Calamity. We pick off what we can now before heading in. I floated up the sniper rifle, loading armor-piercing rounds and taking aim. From this distance, I couldn't use my targeting spell to help me, but I had no trouble lining up headshot just through the scope. Zenith nickered, shaking her head. Calamity picked the Spitfire's thunder off the asphalt of the overpass and took position 20 yards away from me. Damn it, wait, I heard Velvet Remedy shout, but I had already pulled the trigger. Blam, blam, uh-oh. Uh-oh. The air filled with the sound of ear-splittering thunder as we began to fire down on Old Olneigh. I watched as the head of the hellhound in my sights burst into bloody spray. I moved to acquire my next target. The hellhounds were all looking up now, turning, beginning to move. I found a second and fired, but the creature moved too fast. I aimed ahead of him, firing a second shot and then a third. I was no longer able to aim for specific parts of the body. I was just hoping to hit them at all. My second shot did, but it only slowed him down. The third missed entirely. I kept trying. Several shot back, beams of magical energy cutting the air, but we were too far away and too well protected by the overpass to be in danger from anything other than a dedicated sniper. Calamity was having far better luck. Every shot hit its target, crippling or killing. He started picking off the ones in the street as I turned my focus to those just coming out of the doorways. That worked better. I felt a second and third. Ah, crap, Calamity hissed as the hellhound he had turned his aim on dove into the ground, digging through the street like it was wet toilet paper. Calamity fired, blowing the creature's tail off as it disappeared. They weren't coming out the doors anymore, and as I looked up, I saw the last of the hellhounds on the street disappear into a hole. We had killed 10 of them. Well, brilliant, Velvet Remedy face hoofed. Both of you. Now they know we're here and we've attacked them first. She looked cross. Calamity wiggled his wounded wing. My wing disagrees, Velvet Remedy's ears drooped. Now, Zenith told Calamity, you are prey. We are all prey. They came for us on the overpass while I was still paralyzed by an aesthetic spell. The hellhounds weren't foolish enough to come running up on the on-ramp like we had hoped. Instead, they dug their powerful claws into the pier beneath us and began to climb. The first one clawed its way over the railing, almost on top of us. Pyrelite was the fastest to react, filling it with a face full of radioactive green flame. Calamity recovered quickly, firing 2 of the Nova Surge rifles in his Enclave armor directly into the hellhound's torso as it lashed out with its claws, barely missing the balefire phoenix. The monster tilted back, dissolving. They're coming up from beneath us, Zenith warned before turning to dig in her satchel. Velvet Remedy cooed to Pyrelite, would you be so kind as to burn them off the pier? Pyrelite hooted happily and leaped over the edge. I could hear the roar flames beneath. Pyrelite was able to take out 2 of them before more of the ground abandoned climbing and started shooting at her. She appeared, dodging and weaving between shots as the magical energy attacks drove her away from the overpass and the ponies she was protecting. Zenith produced a bottle and passed it to Velvet Remedy. Dip your slugs in this before you load them, she instructed. The poison will cripple the creatures if your shot isn't enough to kill them. Velvet Remedy opened her combat shotgun, floating up the slugs and dipping them as instructed, a grim look on her face. 2 more crawled over the railing. I was ready this time, floating up little Macintoshes. I slipped into the sats and fired into their heads. The hellhound's brains splashed out of the exit wounds. 3 more replaced the 2 I had just killed, and the sound of rending concrete warned me that they were digging directly up through the overpass from the top of the pier. Velvet Remedy, an aesthetic spell, hit one of the hellhounds, causing the creatures to fall. She lifted her shotgun towards another and hesitated. The hellhound lashed out at her, his claws slashing shallow lines of red across her breast and throat as I telekinetically shoved her back. Surrender, she offered to the creature. Don't make me hurt you. God dang it, Calamity shouted, firing a bevy of magical energy bolts into the hellhound. The creature collapsed into a steaming puddle, leaving Velvet Remedy and Calamity staring at each other through the rising smoke. Don't reason with them, they ain't interested. They're people, she shouted back. They have a right to live. Y'all heard the zebra, Calamity shouted, turning to fire at another hellhound as he dug up through the overpass asphalt. They're hunting us. And whose fault is that? She quipped back loudly, throwing a protective shield over Zenith. The hellhound's claws tore through Velvet's shield like it was made of colored air. The zebra stepped inside the attack, rising on her hind legs and throwing up one hoof to stop the monster's swinging arm while driving another hoof against the thick hide of his throat. The hellhound collapsed, choking. Has anybody even tried just talking to them? Velvet cried out in exasperation. I reloaded Lil Macintosh as quickly as I could. They were coming faster now. It was getting harder to put them down as quickly as they surfaced. And one good swipe from their claws would kill any one of us. They were bloody hellhound corpses and piles of sludge all around us. We'd managed to kill nearly 10 miraculously without getting crippled or killed. Even if Velvet Remedy had a point, it was far too late now. I told her so as I fired point blank at the hellhound and somehow missed. The creature bore down on me with its claws. Velvet Remedy sang a single high-pitched note. The hellhound immediately fell back. Its clawed paws covering its ears, it turned and fled back down the hole and had come out so fast that I didn't have time to bring up my targeting spell and shoot it in the back. That is hilarious. Velvet continued to hold the note, clear and strong. I looked around, and the other hellhounds were disappearing, fleeing the overpass. All Velvet Remedy had to do was do a high note. That was enough for them. Once they were all gone, Velvet's voice finally broke. Panting, she fixed all of us with a glower. Savage animals and monsters are one thing, but with people, there's usually a way that doesn't require killing each other. We moved cautiously into Old Olneigh. The sun was beginning to set, and I wanted to get into the hospital and out again before the coming darkness to put us at an even greater disadvantage. We were taking Zenith's advice now, not engaging, moving swiftly and quietly. One of the group of us, only Velvet Remedy, was unskilled at stealth, so I was floating her along with us. The faint glow coming from my horn and shining around her worried me. It was like I was painting her as a target, but from our experiences, it seemed the hellhounds hunted by sound more than sight, possibly by scent as well, so it felt more important to keep her hooves off the ground. As we pushed through the remains of a building, I spotted several pony-shaped figures laying on the floor above us, although a collapsed section of a ceiling. I waved a hoof at the others. Hold up, I want to take a look. I floated myself upwards, sweating with effort, my horn glowing brighter. But there were no red marks on my EFS compass, no sign of life on the floor above at all, so I felt momentarily safe in pushing myself. That is until you encountered a robot. With all due respect, if you're not a kid, you shouldn't act like one. As I levitated through the hole, I could see the bodies were of steel rangers, 3 of them clad in metal armor and a 4th who was not. The 4th sparked my curiosity, a yellow unicorn mare wearing thickly armored red robes with the sparks and gear symbol of the steel rangers embroidered into it. I had not seen a ranger wearing anything other than steel ranger armor, save for Elder Blueberry Saber. All 4 of them had died from terrible wounds inflicted by hellhound claws. The bodies were desiccated. They had been here quite some time. The hellhounds had mined the floor around the bodies. One by one, I disarmed them. I began scavenging the bodies, searching for any clues as to what brought those 4 to Old Olneigh, as well as any supplies or ammo that might benefit us. I was in luck. The road pony had 2 stealth bucks and a memory orb. One of the other rangers had magically enchanted ammunition that was of the same caliber as Calamity's normal battle saddle. I brought my treasures back to the others. You ain't planning on looking into that there orb while we're in Old Olneigh, right? Calamity said with a gentle warning. Y'all remember our little talk, don't you? I nodded solemnly. I pinky pie swear. You what now? Never mind, tell you later, and yes, I promise. As we moved to the edge of the street, my EFS warned me that there were at least 4 hellhounds around the corner. I halted everyone. We might be able to take them, we had surprise, but it would only take one good swipe for them to behead one of us, and the fight would draw others. No, we would continue to follow Zenith's advice. I motioned everyone back the other way. I hate this, Calamity muttered in a whisper. I want to hunt the hunters, not play these scurrying games. I ain't a rabbit. Zenith gave her a wry smile. Humility does not come easy to you, does it? Calamity turned to her. What's that supposed to mean? Are you saying I'm a show-off? She wouldn't be entirely wrong, would she? Velvet Remedy purred with just the right tone to soothe and embarrass the Pegasus. Ooh, smooth criminal. The partially collapsed firehouse tilted at an insane angle, making the entire world seem alien and threatening. Calamity, Velvet Remedy, and I scrambled across the maze of broken floors and leaning columns. Firelight swooped between the floors, occasionally diving down to the bright red firehouse wagons that lay crushed and partially buried under swaths of flooring. A hellhound lurched into the doorway behind us, only to find Zenith waiting for it. A swift blow beneath the ribs froze the creature in place, paralyzing it. As it fell, a bolt of magical energy shot through the doorway, striking the zebra in the throat. She glowed brightly, and the orbs over our heads burst. Zenith fell, bleeding from a wound in her throat and the size of a memory orb. God dang! Yo, wait, did we just get a character kill? Hold on, I'm curious now. Velvet Remedy struck the monster with an anesthetic spell, then rushed to Zenith, floating out her dress and using it to apply pressure to the wound. The dress was quickly ruined as it soaked with blood. Can I please kill him? Calamity huffed. Velvet frowned, not saying anything. Zenith rasped, yes, silently, and cut them open. The blood. Smell. The hellhounds were hunting us, tracking us now clearly by scent. I understood what Zenith intended. So they're like, it's like Walking Dead logic. Just wear them. As did Calamity. Velvet Remedy turned away, unwilling or unable to watch as we slew the two hellhounds. We made it quick, merciful. It was the least we could do, considering that we were about to defile their bodies. This ends any chance of diplomacy, Velvet moaned. I hesitated, floating a jagged piece of sheet metal out of the debris and positioning it over the hellhound's body. I had to disembowel him, spread his stink, cover our path with the stench of his death. It was vile. Slowly I lowered my jagged metal, slashing at the hellhound's armored hide, slowly sawing into him. It was incredibly hard, and the reek was unbearable. I took what little comfort I could in knowing that at least he had died quickly and without pain. Corrupted kindness, the little pony in my head whispered in the voice of the goddess. Please, no. By the time I was done, I felt sick to my stomach. I'd killed plenty, but this made me feel like a raider. My mind conjured up the image of myself bleeding, wearing raider armor, the image from the magical mirror. There were bathrooms on the floor above, and medical boxes in each of them. Cracked mirrors and shattered toilets leaned crazy angles. The whole tilt of the building was making me nauseous, even more than I already was from the grisly work before. My pit-bug complained as I got close enough to the sink for it to scan the contents of what little plumbing remained functional. The levels of radiation in the water here rivaled and usually exceeded the levels in Philadelphia. I sat braced against the wall and picked the lock on the medical box in the little mayor's room. The lock clicked open with ease. I opened it, emptying the box of its meager medical supplies and adding them to the supplies for the medical box in the little box room. Nothing that would help Calamity's wing, but the small healing poultice would close and heal Zenith's wound. The wasteland sometimes gave small favors. I pushed myself up, feeling unsteady on the canted floor, and hurried back to the others. They were gathered in what had been the firehouse kitchen. Velvet Remedy took the poultice and applied it, then borrowed a needle and thread from Calamity's clothing repair kit. A cabinet 2 buildings back had offered up an old bottle of apple whiskey, half empty. I whimpered inside as the drink went to sterilizing the needle. I could use a sip. I contented myself with a draught from my last canteen. It was nearly empty. I itched in ways I shouldn't itch. The poultice had stopped the bleeding and partially closed the gaping wound in Zenith's neck. Velvet began to sew the wound closed completely. Even with Velvet's expert attentions, the wound was going to remain an ugly scar for the rest of her life. I realized not for the first time that the zebra would be dead if the magical bolt had struck her just an inch differently. Now, you wait here and rest, Velvet ordered the zebra mare. And Little Pip, you watch her. I'm taking Calamity to find something to use as rags to clean. Ugh. That's like a little, like, not a gnat. Actually, it might be a gnat just flying around me. It's very, very annoying. And Lil Pip, you watch her. I'm taking Calamity and find something to use as rags to clean your butchers off. Velvet stuck her nose in the air and trotted out. Calamity scowled but followed, pausing next to me long enough to remind me, no orbs. I watched him walk out after her. Rags sounded more like an excuse to talk to Calamity alone. I let out a long sigh. Worst day ever. It wasn't, but ever since we entered Splendid Valley, the day had been working very hard at becoming so, reaching a lunatic rating of badass. Zenith lay still for almost a full minute before getting up and moving about the kitchen. She had to brace herself on sloping counters as she rifled through the cabinets. Well, at least you're as good at following doctor's orders as the rest of us, I chuckled as the zebra started pulling pots out and setting them on the table. One of them slid down the incline. I caught it magically before it hit the floor. Zenith, I asked as a worry from the days before flooded back, do you trust me? Without turning from her task, she replied by asking, trust you about what? It was a dodge, but still a fair question. Do you trust me as a person? No, she said simply. Should I? I was taken back by the cool, honest answer. Why not? You are impulsive and have difficulty controlling your urges, she said as she opened the refrigerator door and pulled out a hunk of something covered in grotesquely mutated mold. She set it on the table and I caught it as it tried to slide away, recoiling from the sight of it. You are a very quick thinker and equally swift to act, Zenith continued, crouching to check lower drawers. This makes you adaptable, perhaps, more than any pony or zebra I have ever known. It allows you to improvise where others would be paralyzed, but it also leads you to rash actions from hasty decisions and gets you into trouble as often as it gets you out of it. She finally pulled a knife from one of the drawers. She set it on the counter. I caught it too as she turned to look at me, although those are just my observations, and I have not known you very long. She looked me over. Why do you ask? I wasn't sure what to feel. I wanted to argue with her, but a large part of me suspected she was right and cursed her for being so observant. Do you think I'm evil? Zenith stopped looking at me oddly, then laughed. No, little one. You are one of the most caring souls I have ever met, pony or otherwise. Again, the little pony in my head whispered, corrupted kindness, in the voice of the goddess. Do you think I'm cursed then? At her odd expression, I clarified. I have been touched by homage. Oh no! How sad. Want want. The zebra turned back to scouring the kitchen, pulling pans out of the lower drawer to get at a spark battery-powered hot plate. Of that, I am quite aware. I felt myself flush nervously. What do you mean by that? There are lovers who are quiet, and there are those who are not devastated. You are not one of the quiet ones. Oh no, dear sweet Celestia, you are a tribe called Whinier? I have no clue. I felt myself blushing hotly. I wanted to throw myself with a Splendid Valley single out of sheer embarrassment. You mean all those each? I squeaked. Yes, Zenith confirmed each. It took me several minutes and an old sack that Zebra had given me before I stopped hyperventilating. Can you breathe now? Zenith asked gently. Womp womp. No, I don't know. Maybe I did. I have no idea. Alright, peace. I nodded. I think so. The medical pony is right, Zenith said with a soft smile. You were cute when you were that color. I felt faint, my breathing threatening to quicken again. I took a moment and composed myself as best I could. So, am I cursed because I love homage? She paused, then turned away. I waited for her to answer. The answer I received was not what I had expected. The zebras may have been wrong about Nightmare Moon, she admitted. You ponies may have been right. The wielders of the elements of harmony may have broken whatever hold the stars had over Nightmare Moon. Luna may have been different. Oh boy, fun facts, let's go. Bring on the facts. She turned to me, but that does not mean that the touch of the stars was still not upon her, that it did not influence her in more subtle ways. She looked to me. I am open to your beliefs, but I ask that you be open to mine. Perhaps there is truth in both. I frowned. I didn't want there to be any truth in her beliefs, but I had seen things that suggested otherwise, things that suggested maybe there was something dark and terrible up there in the vast emptiness that stretched behind the moon. But Homage is not evil. She is not twisted. She is no Nightmare Moon. I insisted. In fact, she saved our lives. She saved yours. Zenith nodded with a sad smile. And would you not say it was quite an amazing shot? Absolutely. It was a what? The weapon from the stars wants to kill, Zenith said. It yearns to kill. Okay, now that was just creepy. I will accept that Homage is good, kind pony, and that she is not cursed because you ask me to, Zenith conceded. Even though I do not trust your judgment, I believe you speak truthfully in this, and I suspect you are better experienced at matters of the heart than I am. I smiled, feeling a touch of relief. Thank you, Zenith. You're confused about chat, makes sense. I have no clue what the hell they always get themselves into, but it's so freaking confusing. The zebra shook her head, but I ask in return that you keep an open mind to the things I believe and a watchful eye for warning signs. The stars take the greatest delight in giving us the means to destroy ourselves and each other. Do you truly think that your relationship has not changed now that she has taken a life for you? I felt a chill. I had not considered that before. Or if I had, I had seen the consequences as being entirely beneficial. She had saved my life. How would that not bring us closer? But had I not, that very night, wept in front of her for having killed a Steel Ranger? Regardless whether Zenith's superstitious fears were justified, she had led me to re-examine what had happened in a less self-centered way. I looked up into the zebra's eyes. Thank you. Oh, I see a bug. Get back here, little booger. I want you dead. Those dang bugs. I hate bugs. Especially the small little ones. Oh, I freaking hate them. I floated the whole array of pots and pans Zenith had quickly Oh, get off my screen. Get off. Get the heck off my screen, you stupid bug. Not far outside, Calamity and Remedy had started arguing. We could hear it from inside the kitchen, but could not make out the words. Not that I wanted to, Zenith fretted, worried that their discussion would attract more hellhounds, but so far they were keeping their voices low enough. Still, it added an unpleasantness to the air. I distracted myself by returning to an earlier part of my conversation with Zenith. Do you trust me to tell you the truth? Yes, little one, unless you believe it is my best interest to lie. No, those are good. Yeah, I'll take a fact. Why not? Crap, I hated to think she might be right about that. I would have preferred to be more like Homage, but if it came to telling the truth or protecting my friends, I had a track record of choosing the latter. And while I regretted the necessity to... it was rare for me to reconsider the choice. Did this mean that I was playing steel hooves to Homage's Applejack? Well, would you trust me with your life? I asked as Zenith took the knife and started scraping chunks of mold into one of the pots. She finished and put the knife down. I caught it again. It was not a matter of trust you saved my life. You are responsible for it. Ugh, more insane zebra logic. All the worse since it was insane understandable zebra logic. I have not chosen to release you from that. Frustrated, I asked, why not? Look where following me has got you. You nearly died. I've taken you from one hellhole straight into another. The zebra looked at me, a touch of sadness in her eyes, then turned away. She filled a pot with horribly irradiated water, then began to mix the mold into it. Not answering me, I sat and watched in the very least. Maybe I could learn something. One by one, she added more ingredients, none of which looked healthy. I hope this wasn't anything we were intended to consume. That's actually hilarious. Don't talk, she said, although I wasn't talking at all anymore. Be quiet, run, hide. Her voice was low, heavy. Get your food and hide, or a pony will take it from you. Don't talk. When they come for you, relax. Let them do what they will do. Don't fight, don't scream, don't talk. She looked up at the canted ceiling. When they hurt, you grunt, whimper. Don't talk, always the same. Until they get bored, then hide, heal, prepare for the next time. That sounds so screwed up. It's very screwed up. She looked to me. If they move to kill you, kill them. Then hide the body. Hide it well. Find another place to be. Don't let them suspect you. Be meek, don't talk, hide. Holy cow, that's so freaking, like, screwed up. The cold shiver passed through me as I stared at the scarred zebra mare. It was only after a truly exceptional horror that I dared join the fights. I did not wish them to see that I could fight, but I could no longer bear it. She lowered her head, looking to me with tears in her eyes. Before you, the slavers. Before the slavers, my husband. Before him, my parents. I have never owned myself. I am not comfortable with the idea. I know this role. I can survive with it. I'm going to turn a frickin' light on after this. I get to the end of this little segment. I shook my mane. I may be responsible for you, as you say, but I am not a slaver. I do not own you. And for that you are better than all the others, Zenith admitted, but still the fact remains that I do not... Maybe I got it? I hope I did. Being alive, being responsible for myself. I think I told you, you do fine. No idea. The hallway tilted at such a nauseating angle that I was walking as much on the wall as the floor. I followed close to Calamity, keeping an eye on my eyes forward sparkle for hellhounds. We were hunters again at Zenith's request. Another one on hour 6, I whispered to him as the light appeared on my compass. Supply room, I think. I see it, Calamity nodded, reminding me that the bug-eye-styled visor in his armor had an EFS of its own. Crouching low, the Pegasus moved stealthily forward until he was in position directly in front of the door, his 4 magical energy rifles pulsing eagerly. I delicately pushed open the door, holding it to gravity. Wouldn't swing it back shut. A skewering dart shot out of the supply room, bouncing harmlessly off the forehead of Calamity's black carapace. Humph, he chuckled, raising on his haunches and striking at the bloat sprite with the stinger of his armor-segmented scorpion tail. The impaled creature squealed as it died. He said, still chuckling. Ever wish these things could detect threat level instead of just threats? I almost wasted a lot of ammo on a bug. No, after this, I'm gonna probably go back to playing more Amnesia. I smirked often. I turned back to our other friends, motioning them forward. Velvet nodded and nudged Zenith, who was crouched and facing the other way, guarding our flank. My eyes forward sparkled, tracked a friendly spot of light as Pyrelight swooped in and out of the rooms, searching for enemies to burn or rodents to eat. The Balefire Phoenix returned to drop charred corpses of a small animal at Velvet Remedy's hooves. Oh, thank you, Velvet sang lusciously, stroking the bird's plumage with the gentle hoof. Pyrelight hooted happily and stretched her wings, fluttering off again. It boggled my mind. They have such a weird relationships. You know, you're just encouraging her to keep doing that. And why wouldn't I? Velvet said sweetly. My little Pyrelight is a wonderful hunter, just like she should be. Calamity gave a grumpy look at Zenith's direction. At least I assumed it was a grumpy look. With my friend hidden inside that armor, I really couldn't tell, but his posture struck me as grumpy. I don't think... I think it's been a little bit... I think it's a different week, but yeah, I guess. The posture trophy is great. I decided I preferred my friend out of that armor. It made him look mysterious and rather evil, and it put up a barrier between us that I didn't care for. I'd gotten used to it with steel hooves, but not being able to see Calamity's face just felt wrong. She is a bird of prey, after all, Velvet reminded us. Zenith eyed the charred corpse and shook her head, then cantered towards us, moving with surprising ease down the off-kilter hallway. Calamity flexed his injured wing, and I thought I heard him mutter, "So was I not long ago." So Calamity had piped up, pulling his attention away. I had a question that needs a Pegasus expertise. "Shoot, little Pip," he said, seeming to cheer up. "If I wanted to clear away a large area of clouds, say the area over Manhattan, say just a totally random example, the area above a megaspell chamber, which requires sunlight to function, how could I do so without having the Enclave all over me?" Calamity nickered. "Oh no. What you planning now, little Pip?" "Just theoretical." "Yup, sure it is," he said, clearly not buying a word of it. Zenith moved up to the body of the blow sprite. "Perfect," she intoned, opening her satchel. Leaning down, she tore off its wings and spat them into the satchel. "Now I must find a room to complete the brew." Zenith moved ahead, taking the lead again. "Do I even want to know?" Calamity said. "From what I've seen go into it, I prefer not to." Returning to my question, Calamity informed me, "Well, there's only one way to clear an area that big, that fast, and that's with a sonic rainbow." The gears in my head started turning. Of course, the Enclave's response would be swift and deadly, but you might have clear skies for over an hour. He chuckled roughly, which, sad to say, requires a Pegasus capable of performing one, which the Equestrian wasteland has exactly 0. The gears ground to a stop. "Damn. Sorry, little Pip. Show off or not, that's one trick I ain't never been able to do. Very, very few Pegasi can. And the Enclave keeps them real close." That is wild. That's true. Usually I consider a week to be Monday through Friday. Actually, I'm sorry, no. Yeah, typical work week, I guess. Monday through Friday. That's 5 days, though. And then the weekend is obviously Saturday and Sunday. That's how I kind of look at it. But, yeah. I guess that is technically within a week. While the firehouse had started to topple, the building came to a rest again. The Mare Pony Mining Administration building, a canted firehouse window, hung open about 5 feet from the opening of a shattered window on the opposite building. "Just a hop, a skip, and a jump," I told Calamity with a smile. I remembered wearing Enclave armor from riding Rainbow Dash's memory. It might look fearsomely heavy, but it was amazingly light. There was no reason Calamity couldn't do this easily. Calamity braced against the slopping floor. "Easy to say for y'all who ain't never had to do something like this without your wings." He looked at me. "If I fall, y'all ready to catch me, right?" "Just float him across," Zenith suggested from the opposite window, where she and Velvet Remedy were waiting. "Yeah," Calamity agreed. "I like that plan better." Maybe someday, I have no clue. I rolled my eyes, then whispered to him, "But which do you think will impress Velvet more?" Calamity straightened up, shook his fears off, galloped, and leaped. He made it with 5 feet to spare. Show off. My turn. I looked down the sloping floor and across the gap on the opposite window sill. It wasn't even with this window, maybe 2 feet higher, I swallowed. In Calamity's defense, the tilted floor was throwing me too. I galloped forward. Oh, hold on, I gotta scratch my eye. Ugh. I galloped forward, lightning myself at the last moment after I had all the momentum I needed. I sailed across, smacking into Calamity's arm and tail. "See," he joked. "I told ya, nothing to it." I snickered and shook my head. The room was an open office space filled with desks and terminals, none of which had survived well. I checked my EFS and found red lights moving around us, probably on the floors above. I motioned the others to be quiet, and once again I levitated Velvet Remedy as removed. As we passed the last of the desks, I noticed an orange and yellow book laying in an open waste bin. I floated it out, looking the book over. "The Big Book of Boom," announced the cover, adding beneath, the Dynamite Guide to Handling Explosive. Below that was a picture of the author, Red Three Hooves, running with a cartoon balloon saying, "You better handle her right the first time, cause she won't explode twice." The book was crammed full of notes and papers. I tucked it away to look over later. Underneath it was an audio recording. I downloaded it into my PipBuck and slipped my earbloom into an ear. Surely Calamity wouldn't mind this. Listening to a recording wouldn't remove me from my surroundings. Mining Officer Torchwood to all concerned personnel. First order of business. We will be having a surprise inspection in 2 days. Every pony needs to be well rested and at the top of their game. Mare Pony Operations, over Mare Sunny Days, has authorized a half day tomorrow so that every pony can get plenty of rest and have their uniforms cleaned and starched. Any pony who uses this time to go to Ponyville and get drunk will not be allowed back into the Mare Pony facility or any operations buildings within Old Olneigh, and will be docked 1 week's pay. Baskets, make sure you have a proper headgear this time, or you will find yourself no longer employed by Mare Pony Mining Co. Second order of business, Mare Pony Mining Co. has increased demand for productivity. This means you can expect an increase in work hours of 20% with a corresponding 15% increase in your paychecks. Officers whose teams exceed the new quotas will receive a bonus. I cannot say what the bonus is, but I can let you know that the bonus will include ice cream. Likewise, we will be opening up several previously restricted tunnels to mining operations. The Mare Pony Mining Co. assures you that these tunnels meet and exceed our minimum safety standards. Third order of business, there has been increased reports of trespass by relocated diamond dogs. Now, I don't know if this is a territorial pack mine thing or if they're just stupid, but if you find a diamond dog on Mare Pony property, you are to instruct the dog to leave. If the diamond dog refuses, use of sonic deterrents are permitted. Ask your team officers for the newest line in D4 diamond dog deterrent device. Whistles now with convenient neck wrapping loops. Fourth order of business, thanks to Brickbone, we have had to reset our days without serious injuries board back to 0. Thankfully, Brickbane will recover the use of most of her limbs. Remember, D4 neck wrapping loops should be kept short so that your whistle cannot dangle into mining machinery. Keep up the good work, every pony. Dang, that is screwed up. I turned off the earbloom. We had reached the stairwell and my EFS had lit up with more hostiles. 2 hellhounds lurked visibly at the bottom of the stairs below. They were wearing makeshift armor, and one of them carried a magical energy minigun. They were more around the corner. One of them started sniffing. I motioned the others back and looked to Zenith. In theory, the potion she had brewed was altering our scent, making us smell like mold and bloat sprites. Still, going down to street level was out unless Zenith thought now was the time to go on the offensive. The zebra shook her head. She slipped forward and started up the stairs towards the roof. If I remembered correctly, this would put us across the street from the hospital. I don't think even Calamity could clear Old Olneigh's main street with just a hop, skip, and a jump. What am I looking at? It was not the first time those words had come out of my mouth. A late evening wind moaned through Old Olneigh, pulling at our manes and tails. A yard from my hooves was the lumpy puddle of sludge which had once been the hellhound sniper positioned on the rooftop of the Mare Pony Mining and Administration Building. Calamity had fired on him the moment we burst out onto the roof, liquefying the creature before it could attack or howl. A strange antennae sat in the center of the sagging rooftop, humming softly, surrounded by magical gemstones that radiated a soft blue light. Around the antenna were several tables, one of which was still intact and held a glowing terminal that faced away from us. The others had been clawed to shreds. Strange silvery boxes sat nearby, all but one of them similarly shredded. Hellhound claws marks sliced into the barricades that ringed the roof. There were several dead ponies up here, all of them Pegasi, all wearing the same black carapace armor. Enclave scouting party? I asked Calamity. Our Pegasus walked amongst the corpses. They were old, just dried, and rotting flesh hanging on the bone. No, he said, looking up. This was a science team. No, I'm with the science team! Wait! Gordon, you must take me with you. Calamity trotted round to the other side of the terminal. I have no idea what they would be doing in Old Olneigh, or down here at all for that matter. His voice was grim, but I'm to find out. I recalled with Homage had told me about the night she found the weapon from the stars. Joke Blue had suspected it was part of a Grand Pegasus Enclave experiment. Perhaps she had not been so wrong after all. Maybe I should try hacking in, I blurted out, wanting to see what secrets in the terminal held. Calamity's armored head looked up, and he lifted his visor. He chuckled. Be my guest, he said, stepping away and welcoming me to the terminal with a swing of his scorpion-like tail. But I don't think you'll be able to hack this one. Come on, Calamity, I laughed good-naturedly. I haven't met a terminal yet that I can't hack. I puffed myself up, taking that as a challenge. Y'all ain't never met an Enclave terminal, Calamity said knowingly. I can't wait for little Pip to actually fail this one. I stuck out my tongue as I trotted over. Technology's all the same. This is me, remember? The little mare with the pip buck on her flank? Let me at it. I stopped as I caught sight of the terminal's interface. It was made of strange white substance that I couldn't identify. I reached out to touch it, my hoof went right through it, like there was nothing there. It was made of clouds? What the fuck? Calamity laughed. I looked around. The Enclave supply boxes all had locks that were made of the same material, either white or a light shade of pink. I looked to him, demanding an explanation as the pony in my head ranted that this was not how things should be. Well, what do y'all expect Pegasi built stuff out of? There are whole cities up there built almost entirely out of clouds. I could feel him grinning behind that damn helmet. What, did you believe only unicorn ponies had only magic of their own? I stopped frustrated. The very idea of terminals and locks that I couldn't get into because they were made of clouds was just wrong and unfair. The words of the goddess floated back to me with controls which can only be operated by a Pegasus. With controls which can only be operated by a Pegasus. Fuck, the Ministry of Awesome had built key control systems out of fucking clouds. Any pony other than a Pegasus who attempted to operate the controls would find themselves clutching slightly damp air. The thought occurred to me, is there anyone other than a Pegasus who can operate a system with a cloud interface? Nope, Calamity said proudly, then swiftly took it back. Yup, Griffins can. So that's how Red Eye was planning to get past the obstacles. And I knew how he was trying to get past the second. We were on the clock again. I sighed, tossing out my hooves in exasperation, and trotted back to the others, letting Calamity work on hacking the terminal. Instead, I moved to the edge of the building. I floated out my binoculars and looked across the street at the hospital. It looked shaken. There were massive cracks running in the walls, and one corner had collapsed. A sign, a yellow cross with a pink butterfly in the center, had started to pull free from the wall 2 stories up. The upper bolts had torn from the wall and the whole sign hung precariously over the street below. Most of the windows were shattered and the winds of Old Olneigh whipped at stained hospital curtains. Stained hospital curtains. Even still, it was one of the most intact buildings in Old Olneigh, and it was our best hope for medical supplies we needed to fix Calamity's wing. I looked across to the rooftop and I could see the Earth Pony flying contraption clearly, with its candy-colored paint job lit up the setting sun. The name Griffin Chaser 2 emblazoned on the side. Embalmed? No, it's not embalmed. Emblazoned, I don't know. On the side. It looked in sore disrepair, but I trusted Calamity's expertise. I looked down into the main road of Old Olneigh, a main street with a set of train tracks running down the center. Hellhounds scampered about, moving from one building to another in packs, hunting us, and night was falling. I was staring at the spikes that adorned the top of the wrought iron gate. There were ugly things, painful looking. I nodded my horn towards one of them, and then the metal glowed with beautiful blue magic, reshaping itself instantly into a happily prancing mare. I sent up a prayer of thanks to Celestia and Luna. I was in a unicorn mare. It felt good and right. Even better, I was in sunlight, perhaps the brightest, cleanest sunlight yet. The air was dusty but clean, reminding me yet again of how odd the air in the real world was. I turned my eyes to the next one and wove the magical spell over it. This one became a prancing unicorn stallion. I was struck by how much it resembled Prince Blueblood, almost a perfect likeness. The next spike glowed and transformed into a unicorn mare, head bent as if it was mid-charge. Her horn aimed dangerously close to Prince Blueblood's. Is it Rarity? Behave yourself, Rarity, I heard myself whisper in Rarity's lovely voice. The blue glow of magic surrounded the two figures again, and they were transformed into entirely different, happy, and generic Pegasi. I felt a strange thrill as I realized who I was, followed by a flash of guilt. That old spell, huh? Came a voice from directly behind me. I turned the blue Pegasus with the shockingly rainbow-colored mane moving into view. It's not polite to sneak up on ponies, Rainbow Dash. I wasn't sneaking, the Pegasus said defensively. I was just flying. It's not my fault flying is quiet. Rainbow Dash was wearing the purple and black uniform I'd seen her in before. So what have they got you all the way out in this dustbin for? Rarity looked around as I was treated to the sight of Old Olneigh, intact and well-maintained and bustling with ponies. I was able to see the shops and homes that I had only known as ruins. And yet, as glorious as this look into the past was, I was clearly not seeing Old Olneigh in its heyday. Most of the shops were boarded up. There was a sense of disuse hanging over much of the town, and the bulk of the ponies were clearly either military or associated with the Ministry of Arcane Science. Reminds me of Strangerville from The Sims 4. Apparently, Rarity said ruefully, "They're having trouble with the Diamond Dogs again. Fluttershy has tried to talk to them, but it didn't work. Since some pony thought they might pay more attention if I were to talk to them." Gee, Rainbow Dash snickered. I wonder why. Why indeed? Did Fluttershy try to tell them that this wasn't their home anymore? Rainbow Dash asked, hovering in the air in front of me. Or how you know that it's dangerous? Of course she did, Rarity said. Fluttershy even tried to compromise. Oh, brother, Rainbow Dash face huffed. But that was when they discovered that Twilight's magical... My host searched for the best word. Byproducts, shall we say, have started eating through the barrels. Sunny lost a pony trying to move them when several tore open like they were made of nothing but the covering paint. I watched us look Rainbow Dash up and down. You know, I still can't believe you are wearing that. Hey, we're Luna's elite aerial force. What else were we going to call ourselves? How about anything other than the Shadow Bolts, Rarity suggested primely. Way I see it, why not play into the zebra's crazy Nightmare Moon phobia? The original Shadow Bolts were all just Nightmare Moon, right? Rainbow Dash grinned conspiratorially. Why not use that to our advantage? Every zebra who sees us coming and flees the battlefield is one less zebra we'll have to kill, or who might kill one of us. Still, I can never get used to seeing you look like that. Actually, Rainbow Dash put a hoof behind her head, brushing her mane. I had an idea about that. Do you think your old dressmaking skills are up to working with armor? The Pegasi ribbed. Rainbow Dash, you wound me. Oh, came a shout from somewhere and the host left. A moment later, a dusty pony in a military uniform galloped to a stop and offered a salute to Rainbow Dash. Rarity stepped back. At ease. Dash looked at the pony's uniform. Tank Commander? Torchwood, ma'am. Big fan. Followed your career since the Wonderbolts. Bro, the freaking Tank Commander gives you a salute. Oh, how generous. So wait, curiosity. I don't really know military ranks are crud or something. I'm pretty sure Tank Commander's just a specialized role, though, versus an actual rank. I could be wrong. I don't work in the mechanized division or anything. But is that like in charge of a division or like a individual tank unit itself? Like a individual building? I'm sorry, not building, an individual vehicle. Is that a tank commander, I'm pretty sure? Or is that just like, you know, a whole division of tanks or something? I have no idea. I have no idea. Rainbow Dash Fries brightened. Oh, really? Did you see him at the Gallops last year? My host shook her head. I see you're going to be busy for a while, Dash. I'll catch you up with you later, she said graciously, even though it was the Pegasus who had sought her out. Do you think you'll be free by dinner? Rainbow Dash turned back. Oh yeah, no problem. I want to throw some ideas past you. I could feel Rarity smiling. Also, Rainbow Dash added, swooping close and whispering, I heard a rumor that you're working on a new spell with the Ministry of Peace. Something about keeping a pony alive and awake indefinitely. Necromancy is hell of a drug, kids. Don't do it. Don't mess with the black book, Necronomicon. Suspended animation was, although that's a very poor description of it, Rarity replied, nodding, and I'm working on it for them, not with them. Part of a private line of research that has finally borne some fruit, but it still needs some fine-tuning. Dash grinned. Great, 'cause that sounds like just what I've been looking for. Rarity raised an eyebrow. Dare I ask? Oh, just part of the Single Pegasus project. I could feel Rarity frown. You mean that thing that has you putting those dreadful eyesores all over our lovely Equestria, she snorted. They'll look better once they're done, I promise. Applebloom says they'll be elegant. You like elegant, right? Indeed I do, but I'll wait until I've seen them. Rainbow Dash's muzzle broke into a big grin. Just you wait until you see the main hub. Actually, you can glimpse its construction if you stand up on the roof of the hospital, just face towards the water tower and look about 100 miles up and out. Rainbow Dash paused. You, might need binoculars. Or a telescope, Rarity retorted. Heh, yeah. Anyway, it's not named yet. They wouldn't let me name it what I wanted to, even though it's my damned project and my ministry, so... You wanted to name it Rainbow Dash's Mega Cool Center of Awesomeness, didn't you? Rarity asked, ribbing back. No, Rainbow Dash hovered indigently, then admitted, not exactly. Rarity laughed a charming and happy laugh. Go tend to your fans, Dash. I'll meet with you later. Rainbow Dash grinned, waving a swooped back to the tank commander Torchwood. In seconds, they were deep into gushing over the aerial acrobatics of Rainbow Dash, a Pegasus who could apparently do sonic rainbows in her sleep. Rarity turned and trotted away, humming joyfully tune. What did you do? Zenith was demanding of Calamity as I came out of the memory. The Pegasus cantered nervously. I don't know, it just started doing that. My ears perked up in a high whine coming from the antenna array. I looked to Calamity, who was staring at the terminal as if it had betrayed him. With a sinking feeling, I asked, did you trigger a lockdown? Calamity shook his head. Nah, I got in just fine. Wasn't that hard. He looked up at me, his eyes wide inside the bug-like nightmare helmet. And what is this place? Was it what you thought? Calamity swallowed. It's an Enclave experiment, all right. Under orders of Harbinger, one of the Enclave High Council, they were playing with magic-laced sonics, hoping to control the Hellhounds. They were trying to make these creatures into slaves, Zenith said in a low voice. I looked around, drinking in the sight on the rooftop with new eyes. I'm guessing it didn't work. What do you think the chances are that we're really lucky and Calamity just triggered the leave us alone signal? The Velvet Remedy quipped grimly, trotting to the roof's edge and looking down into the street. She immediately backed up, eyes wide and frightened, her face going pale under her charcoal coat. I dared to peek. Celestia's solar-heated libido. The street was full of hellhounds. Scores of them. More were moving out of doorways or climbing over buildings, all moving towards us, and they looked pissed. Footnote, maximum level. Holy shoot, Little Pip reached max dang level? It's only level 30, it's only chapter 30. They've already reached the level cap. That's impressive. Ugh, tastes like something's definitely wrong with that. Ugh. Oh man. All right, next chapter. Chapter 31, Life Interrupted. This one's slightly shorter, but hardly. Chapter 31, Life Interrupted. We all go through periods of darkness. In such times we can turn to goddesses, but it's good to have friends. Memory. All the thoughts we have, all the decisions we make are rooted in layers upon layers of experiences. To understand ourselves, we must look to our own past, to our memories. I believe that our pasts and our hearts make us who we are. Our memories define us, but what if we should lose them? Would we become untethered, adrift? Would we even be the same ponies anymore? If you could block out your most horrible and hurtful memories, would you do so to spare yourself the pain? And if you did, would you lose an important part of yourself in the process? And what of higher thought, reasoning, and rationality? If I were to forget the discoveries that led to a realization, would I be able to grasp that revelation anymore? Could I piece together the logic of an argument if I cannot remember having the argument? How important are memories to our ability to even think, or at least think clearly? And what about the reverse? What if you added memories which were not your own? How often could you live parts of other ponies' lives, making their decisions, seeing the events that brought them joy or sorrow, before the boundaries that separated you from them began to blur? Were memory orbs nothing more evocative than particularly well-written books? I knew from experience that a memory orb only preserved sensations. When inside a memory orb, I saw and heard and felt, tasted and smelled, but it was not privy to the actual thoughts and emotions of the hosts whom I rode. But the visions into others' lives, no matter how vivid, have an impact beyond knowledge or entertainment. And what effect might there be on a pony who relived the same memory orb over and over? And what if you could take it a step further? What if you could hear a pony's thoughts, read their minds, perhaps sense their memories? What if you were the goddess? What manner of pony would you have to be just to keep any sense of yourself? Dang, that's deep. I stared in horror at the mob of hellhounds pouring into the streets. They came from the alleys and the shattered ruins. They climbed out of windows and emerged from darkened doorways. In nearly every building I could see, every one that was, except for the one place we intended to go, the hospital. The first had already reached the Mare Pony Mining and Administration building. Some were dashing inside, others sunk their claws into the brick facade and began to scale the walls. Calamity turned to the Enclave crates, shoving the claw-torn containers away until he reached the single undamaged one. I could hear him whisper what sounded like a prayer, although I knew no higher being that Calamity would pray to. Then he furiously clopped at the lock's cloud keypad. The crate opened with a hiss and wash of cool air. Inside was a bundle of fluffy white clouds. Are those grenades? I would have faced up if the noise Calamity made at the sight had it been one of triumph. The Pegasus lowered his head and kicked off his helmet, his orange mane bursting free. His wide eyes and self-pleased smile gave me a boost of joy. He had stayed hidden behind that black insectoid mask too long, and I had missed him. How did you know the combination? Zenith asked curiously. Oh, 104. Harbinger's birthday. Calamity grinned proudly, then sheepishly admitted, "'Twas on the terminal." A cloud? Yup, y'all are in this mess 'cause of me. I plan to get y'all out of it. He leaned his head into the Enclave crate, grabbing the cloud bundle in his teeth. He bit the clouds and picked them up. The little pony in my head was having an aneurysm. Oomph, he boasted through the clouds in his mouth. He trotted up to the roof's edge facing the hospital. A hellhound clawed her way up onto the roof in front of him, raising a paw full of long flesh and armor, tearing claws. Calamity backed away, dropping the cloud bundle, which simply floated where he let it go. Blam! Velvet Remedy's shotgun went off, the slug hitting the hellhound in the center of her left breast. The flesh rippled, but did not give. The hellhound howled in pain, toppling backwards from the impact. Thanks, Celestia, whimpered Velvet Remedy, letting out a sigh of relief. I winced as I realized she was thanking the goddess that hellhounds had thick enough hides to stop a shotgun slug at close range. Until now, I had only used Little Macintosh and the sniper rifle against them. I'd been lucky in those choices. Nothing else I had would likely penetrate. Another hellhound clawed his way onto the rooftop directly behind Zenith. The zebra danced, giving a well-placed buck to the creature's chest. I heard ribs break, and the hellhound fell, rasping, fighting for breath from what I knew was a punctured lung. A second buck sent the hellhound over the edge, catching another climber in the face and knocking them both to the alley below. One of them hit an open waste bin with a back-breaking clang. I had known... I didn't know which had become scarier, hellhounds or Zenith, who could take them down with her hooves. She's a monk main, you know? She's a D&D monk main, and I can't blame her for that. Thank you kindly, Velvet. Calamity stepped back up the floating bundle and gave it a kick. The cloud unfurled, rolling outward like a carpet stretching over the street below. Is that gonna be like a carpet bomb kind of thing? Like, is this just gonna blow up in a chain reaction? 3 more hellhounds pulled themselves onto the rooftop. Velvet Remedy backed up and let out a song, hitting that perfect high note. All 3 hellhounds clutched at their ears. 2 stopped backing up to the edge of the wall. 1 climbed back over the side while the other backed up a step too far. Her arms pirouetting, I don't know. Comically, she fell backwards off the roof. The third lurched forward, striking at Velvet Remedy in a half-blind swipe. Velvet jumped away, her right foreleg did not. Falling to the rooftop in a spreading puddle of blood, Velvet's no ended in a strangled whimper as she lifted her right foreleg, eyes locked on where the stump ended, inches above where her right knee should have been. The hellhound drew back her paw, 1 claw wet with Velvet Remedy's blood. 4 bolts of magical energy struck her in the offending paw. The female hellhound glowed and liquefied. Velvet! I screamed in horror. Calamity dashed to the charcoal-coated unicorn's side, catching her as she wobbled and fell, her eyes still locked on where her right foreleg should be. I can fix this, she whimpered. Velvet fainted in Calamity's forelegs. Oh my god! Drama! Firelight pierced the air with a mournful cry. No! Zenith moved fast, pulling potions from her satchel until she found the right one. She shouted it on the rooftop, commanding our Pegasus, push her wound into that, quickly! It looked like the same pudding that Zenith had given Velvet to stop Calamity's wing from bleeding him dry. Wrapping Velvet's sundering leg in my magic, I floated into the pudding and pressed it into the glop as well. We can fix this, I moaned with determination. She can fix this. She said so. I could hear more hellhounds tearing their way up to the roof from inside and out. Calamity held Velvet, looking stunned, his eyes glistening. His armor was slick with Velvet's blood. Calamity, now! Zenith shouted into his ears. Breaking the Pegasus from his trance, he shoved the bleeding stump into Zenith's medicinal goop, hard enough to make the unconscious Velvet moan. Oh, how nice. Turning to me, Calamity commanded, Zenith, put Little Pip on my back. Little Pip, levitate every pony but me and yourself, and don't forget Velvet's leg. He let Velvet Remedy slide out of his arms and galloped to the cloud carpet, stepping onto it. The cloud held him like it was made of surest steel. I felt a hushed tug at my mane as Zenith lifted me onto Calamity's back. I winced, but the tears blurring my vision were for Velvet. I floated her limp, maimed body into the air, wrapping her severed limb in my magic as well. And finally, Zenith. 2 hellhounds burst up through the roof hatch. A third dug her way up through the ceiling itself, one of the torn Enclave crates knocking her in the snout as it slid into the hole. Let me chase us across this. Let him chase us across this. Calamity broke into a gallop, carrying me over the street on a bed of clouds. My mare friend swooping across the urban canyon towed by my magic. Ugh, English. Ugh. Someday, but not today. The 2 hellhounds from the hatch dropped to all 4s and ran for us, leaping for Calamity and me. They would have landed right behind us, but they fell through the clouds, as was proper for creatures and clouds, and dashed themselves on the street below. One got up, dusting himself off, then took one look at the building we were heading onto and turned the other way. The second had broken her neck and never got up again. Oh, that's grim. I figure y'all got till that beacon shuts up to scavenge what we can from the hospital. Calamity barked, turning to look back over the walkway of clouds. The hellhounds continued to swarm the Mare Pony Mining and Administration building, heedless of our escape. I'll stay here and get this here whirligig fixed. And I will stay here, Velvet breathed weakly, and protect Calamity. Y'all are gonna protect me? Calamity gave her a politely disbelieving look. She smiled back with a glare of her own. If my voice cannot soothe the savage beasts, it can at least send them running. I hated this plan. Words cannot describe how much I hated this plan. The only thing making me agree to this plan were a severe lack of time and an inability to see a better way, and the spark of hope born from the one hellhound's reaction. A hope that maybe the hellhounds had an aversion to the hospital that would protect us. Turning to Zenith, I motioned her to follow. We had no time to lose, and we now had 2 major injuries that demanded top-tier medical supplies. I prayed to Luna that this place had not been stripped clean already, that somehow, for any reason, this hospital was still well stocked. Ah, crap, Calamity said, still staring across the cloud bridge. I turned in alarm, my stomach dropping again. Oh, goddesses, please, not anything else, please. I left my helmet. I wanted to buck him so hard. Leave it. You look better without it anyway. A thought struck me. Can you still shoot those rifles without the helmet's interface? Nope. That sinking feeling was reinforced. How many shots do you have left for Spitfire's Thunder? I'll swap to a fresh clip, but I've only got 3, plus the 2 shots left in the current one. More than he'd have time to fire if he was shooting alone. I looked to Velvet Remedy bleakly. Go, Pip. I'll take care of him. Velvet insisted. Pyrelight landed next to her, puffing out her breast and looking fierce. I nodded before looking back to Calamity and then to the candy-colored heap that was the Griffin Chaser too. Can you fix her? Yup. Positive. Now go. Pyrelight gave me a heartbreaking look. Zenith was already waiting for me at the rooftop access doors. I nodded one last time, praying to the goddesses that this was not the last time I would see them alive, then galloped silently away. Zenith and I made our way through crumbling gray hallways with peeling yellow wainscoting. Motes of dust floated in the air. Occasional debris rained from the ceiling. I took my lead, moving quickly and stealthily, checking rooms. My EFS insisted that there were numerous enemies inside the hospital, lurking somewhere ahead and behind us. From my experience in Stable 24, I suspected they were all on the level below. It hit me as unfair that even with the signal, there would still be hellhounds inside this place hunting us. But as I prepared to curse the heavens, wondering if perhaps I should be cursing the stars, I remembered Calamity and the blow sprays in the closet. The curse died with a chuckle as I realized they were probably surrounded by hostile insects, bloat sprites, or rad roaches, or whatever rad roaches became in the presence of taint. Oh boy, so they get worse. As I turned down a hallway, my ears perked up at the sound of blessedly familiar male voice. Who says you can't go home? That tenacious mare from Stable 2 sure did, and saved her whole damn home from a vicious and unprovoked attack from Steel Rangers who intended to slaughter the stable's entire population and set up shop. But this time, children, the stable dweller had help. That's right, our bringer of light in this dark and cruel world has stirred the hearts of other ponies. And not just ponies, but griffins too. Even ghouls put a hoof to the cause. My gosh, little Pip's getting a little army. That's not right. That's just not right. Something seriously wrong with that. I tell you, children, this is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen in the equestrian wasteland. The people, ponies and non-ponies alike, have witnessed our heroine selflessly helping those around her, and many of us have taken her example to heart. And when our wasteland savior needed us the most, we stepped up. Now I ask each and every one of you, and this is a question straight from DJ Pon3's heart to yours, when the opportunity comes, will you step up too? I felt myself flush, but this time the embarrassment was buried under a heartburst of love for the gray unicorn behind that voice. Her words were like the beam from a lighthouse in the storm of darkness. Alright, peace. Thanks for stopping by. Let me tell you of some of the ponies who did step up, because you are not going to believe this. The Steel Rangers, a saddle full of them at any rate, decided to buck their elders and pledge themselves to helping out the suffering folk of the Equestrian wasteland. You heard me right, children. Some of those metal-clad powerhouses are on our side now. That ain't easy, and their elders have ordered them hunted down. I have reports of Steel Rangers and Steel Ranger outcasts fighting in the streets from Manhattan to Trottingham, but I've also got amazing reports of these outcasts taking down raider hovels and galloping to the aid of caravans. So if you should happen to see one of those new outcast knights or paladins, give them your thanks and maybe a little ammo. Dude, that's so cool. I felt both thankful and hurt as I thought of Steelhooves and those who now followed him, and battled in the streets fighting for their lives because they chose not to follow ponies who were selfish and evil. The pony in my head wondered what would happen if the Pegasi ever learned the truth about this world below them. Would they seek to help only to have their leaders turn upon them? I moved forward, following the voice, nudging open a door to the office where an old radio sat, dusty and neglected, the face above the dial still glowing at the speakers gave DJ Pon3's voices a slightly tinny echo. One last thing, and this is to the stable dweller herself. Another message from my assistant, but don't worry, children. I read it this time, and it's perfectly chaste. I froze my mind, conjuring everything from another devastatingly embarrassing promise to another warning as soul-breaking as the warning about Stable 2. She says, wherever you are right now, I'm thinking of you. Look up at the darkness of the light sky and know that I am looking up into the same darkness with you. We are never apart, no matter how far your drive to help us all takes you from this place. For you are here in my heart, always. I love you, little Pip. I felt myself gush, bursting with joy. Oh, how adorable. Aw, now ain't that just romantic? Don't that just tug at your heartstrings? When did my assistant get so cheesy? Oh, and there's a PS, 31, huh? What's 31 mean? My mind simply went blank. I was drowning in embarrassment, burning alive from the heat that suddenly flushed through my body. Oh dear, Zenith intoned behind me, her exotic voice having not trace of actual sympathy. She leaned forward and whispered in my ear, I should tell Velvet Remedy so that she does not hear it first from strangers, no? I collapsed, dying of sheer humiliation. Homage had banished me to the world of embarrassment, and Zenith had imprisoned me in a dungeon of anticipated torment, in that what I had been banished to. It wasn't until hours later that I realized Zenith's words carried with them the implicit hope that Velvet Remedy would survive. By making me certain Velvet would soon be teasing me endlessly, Zenith dispelled my fear that I was about to lose her. Oh my god, no way. Is Velvet going to actually die? The medical cabinet opened with ease. The lock hardly no way. They're gonna get some, like, Black Book necromancy crud. They are not done. Either that or they're gonna bring Velvet to the freaking hive mind. I know Velvet's not going to die. It's just not gonna happen. The lock hardly were a worthy challenge. Zenith began to collect the medicines and healing bandages inside. So far, the hospital had been a treasure trove of lesser supplies, but had not yielded the more potent potions we were desperately searching for. I looked across the room filled with rotting beds, tattered partitions and toppled IV stands. A night wind blew through broken windows, making the curtains dance like ghosts. The foul sense of 100 hellhounds drifted through the room. I glanced outside and saw them crawling all over the building across from us like a swarm of bees. I wonder why they didn't just destroy the array, but maybe they couldn't. Maybe there was something in the pulse that didn't allow them to. Still, with that many trying to clamber onto the roof, it was only a matter of time before they destroyed it just by accident. I looked the other way, out the door. There was a nurse's station across the hall, no red lights on my EFS. I let Zenith know where I was headed and slipped out, pressing an ear to the door. I thought I heard a snake-like hiss. I checked my EFS again, but there were no threats. The door was locked again. It was hardly a challenge, but when I tried to push the door open, it didn't want to budge. I showed my throwing my weight against it. I heard a crash from inside as the door opened half a yard. Dust and old plaster blasted out from the opening. A fast clicking burst from my pit buck. I poked my head through, coughing, and saw that the ceiling had collapsed. Filling most of the room, broken terminals and office supplies littered the floor around a large chunk of structural material. I could see partially into the room above where the bathtub teetered, hanging from the washroom above only by the plumbing. Water sprayed out of the crack in the pipe, soaking the rubble of the floor below me, draining down into the level beneath us through a section of the nurse's station's floor, which had given way for the decades of water damage. There wasn't much room inside, but I saw that I could reach a locked metal cabinet with the word confiscated written in large red letters. I removed my saddlebags and squeezed in through the opening. The metal cabinet provided a tougher lock with my skills, but still it was a challenge. Enough that I felt a touch of pride as it opened. Inside were drugs, buck, dash, menthols, and a variety of powerful painkillers, as well as other pills and powders which I did not recognize. There were other things too, a memory orb, a knife with a blade that shimmered with an unnatural purple sheen, a copy of Zebra Infiltration Tactics. I floated my saddlebags to me with a telekinetic push. I dumped the entire contents into one of them. A tin of Party Time menthols landed on top. My heart skipped a beat. I wrapped the tin with the magical sheath. Do we really have time for this? The little pony in my head asked. Hurry, we can dump it later. I knew she was lying. I knew I needed to get rid of it now. If I carried it around with me, the temptation to take one when things got bad might be more than I could bear. Oh, come on, you're stronger than that, the pony insisted. And I wasn't I? Or what if Zenith could use it for a potion or something? It would be a shame to waste it. Damn it, I was taking too much time. I closed the saddlebags, floating them out ahead of me. I slithered out of the nurse's station. I've been so distracted by my inner struggle that I didn't even notice the red light on the very edge of my EFS compass. There were no goddesses. There couldn't be for what I was seeing to be allowed to exist. The thing that shoveled down the hall before me had clearly once been meant to be a pony. There was enough pony left. Hold on, what? Its face to tell that the horrifying truth. There was no way to describe the vile, sickening body of the thing. The best my brain could manage was the idea that a pony had started to melt, losing all her fur and keeping only sporadic tufts of her mane and tail, only for the flesh beneath to stop melting, arbitrarily and not all at once, and then began to blow and metastasize. Its eyes, sunken and huge and red, stared into mine. Its tongue had swollen and stretched, bursting out of its muzzle and splitting into tendrils as they hung down from the wreckage that had once been its mouth. The tentacles writhed individually as if it in great pain. What the heck is that? Is this supposed to be like the Chimera from Fallout? Or is this literally like that little blobby thing from Made in the Abyss? Weird. I was petrified by the sight, rooted to the floor, with no ability or will to move. I wanted to run, screaming as that split tongue undulated and whipped out, stretching the length of the hall, each wrapping wetly around one of my hooves. I fell, dragged forward towards my squirmy flesh blob, my face locked onto its eyes. I tried again to scream, but somehow it had stolen my voice. The tongues lifted me over the mass of writhing, furless tissue. As another tongue tentacle pushed out of its muzzle, the tentacle twisted me over, my eyes turned into the ceiling, and my paralysis broke. I thrashed, letting out a scream of terror. The tongues were impossibly strong. Oh, this is going to be interesting. I could not pull my hooves free. It continued to rotate me until I faced away from it, the hallway behind me upside down. I witnessed Zenith dash out of the room to save me, then stop. Eyes wide and locked in place. I felt the new tongue slither across me and realized with abject horror the flesh blob did not intend to kill me. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, I do not like that. No, I screamed in base of fury and primal panic. Oh, no. Blam, 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 blam. My screams were punctured by the fury of little Macintoshes and made my weapon fly blindly into the mess of living flesh. It was hit by a clawing reek. I felt the tongues go slack, dropping me. I felt the creature's body felt like a warm and slimy beanbag chair. Oh, that's disgusting. Gross. and bounced onto the floor. I scrambled away. I felt sick and loathing my body where I touched it. Oh, little Pip, I'm so sorry, Zenith cried out galloping. That's freaking disgusting. I got shakily to my hooves. Little Macintosh bullets had torn gaping holes in the meat of the thing. What is that? I do not know, Zenith said fearfully, but we must be cautious. There may be more of them, and they possess a stare. Yeah, they have a stare of freaking disgusting. Gross. Gross. We moved through the rows of the hospital pharmacy. Our hooves left tracks through the spilled powders that covered the floor. Many of the stacks had partially collapsed, spilling their contents onto the tiles below. I waved the lamp of my pipback over the barely legible labels on a shelf which still had little jars of unsullied medical treasures. Zenith trotted up. A sack held her teeth, which she had found in the housekeeping section behind us. She scooped a seemingly random choice of the tiny jars into the sack with a hoof. I didn't know if any of these would help either Calamity or Velvet Remedy, but I had learned to trust in the value of Zenith's alchemy and brewing. We both froze in sick, shuffling sound of another of the flesh blobs drop at the sack. Zenith moved towards the pharmacy counter as I moved to the pharmacy door. Zenith pushed herself up, peering over the counter cautiously, and didn't move. Every muscle in her body was locked in place. I couldn't hear the softest sound strangling her throat. She had slick tongues of the things in the room beyond, distended and stressed. Really? So, wait a sec, the stare. So, oh, weird. That's weird. It's like they look at it, you like freeze. I darted to the pharmacy and started a corner, getting the barest glimpse of the creature before squeezing my eyes furiously shut and firing several bursts at the zebra rifle into where the creature had just been. I had an unearthly squeal and was assaulted by the acrid stench of the thing's bulbous flesh burning away. I opened my eyes to see Zenith wrench herself free from the limp appendages as the fire climbed up them towards her. She barely avoided being burned. Sorry, I said with a grimace, as both coughing and gagged, mentally noting that the zebra rifle was no longer to be used against these, or for that matter, any tainted creature, considering my run of luck were pairing the two. Zenith tied of her bag, and I helped tie it to her across from her satchel. Together, we moved to the nearby stairwell, not taking the time to peek into the garbage bins. This was already taking far longer than I was comfortable with, and that discomfort didn't even include the creepy itching that was starting to spread inside me. I think she got infected by something by those plants. According to the old paint, the next floor down was the emergency care and operating rooms. They were our best bet for the extra strength restoration potions. You had to sneak up on them from behind, we quickly learned. To look the slithering flesh mounds in the face was to be paralyzed, body and mind. We did not know if those things could affect more than one mare at a time, but neither Zenith nor I was foolish enough to risk it. They were, however, the opposite of hellhounds in many ways. They were slow, stupid monstrosities, possessing no tactical skill, driven by only the basest urges, and their flesh was weak. Even a low-caliber bullet would cause great, stinking ruptures in the tuberous bodies. We made it to the surgical level. Benches lined the wall of what had once been a small waiting room. Rotted periodicals stained the floor. There were only a few pony skeletons here, two with cracked pelvis bones. An ill shudder racked me as it occurred to me that the poor mares had not been killed by the horror which had invaded them, but the horror that had come out. What? What does that mean? What? Wait, what? What? What the heck? What the heck? Beyond the waiting room was a hallway which ended in a swinging pair of double doors. Midway down the hall were two heavy vault-like doors, each with wall-mounted terminals. One of these was the medical supply room for the floor. The sign above the other simply said isolation. The one bright point was that the hospital seemed entirely unscavenged. There was no sign of hellhound claws. It was no mystery anymore why they shunned this place. Oh dear, came a slight tiny voice from the other side of the swinging operating room doors. My eyes for a sparkle was picking up two entities, one of which was a non-hostile presence. The other glowed red on my compass. Mrs. Tulip, I'm afraid you've come down with a serious case of death. I'm afraid this is beyond my meager skills, but I do recommend plenty of bed rest, and I will alert the next available doctor to your condition. The two of us crept down the hall, stopping at the terminals. The one to the medical supply room was dead, leaving me to pick the lock telekinetically. Good afternoon, Mr. Tester, said the oddly cheery voice. I'm pleased to see some of your color has returned. Let me change your IV tubes for you. No, don't fuss. You'll only make this harder. The straps are for your own good. Is this like some Mr. Handy? The tumblers moved, sliding reluctantly into the place of the medical supply room opened. I pointed my pit-buck lamp into the dark space, hoping fervently for a spot of luck. Inside were rocks of collapsing shelving. A metal cabinet had pulled free from the wall and fallen, catching on a counter edge. The door had swung open, its contents spilling and shattering on the floor. Woo! Zenith took a guarding position as I stepped inside, moving like prey. With any luck, we would be in and out before either of the entities in the other room noticed our passing. There was one quick cabinet that looked fairly intact, but from the stairs around the bottom of the door, the insides had not fared as well as the exterior. My heart sank into my stomach and started to die. Outside, the chipper voice said, "Miss Sunshower, dear, let me put that back on for you. You'll never heal if you keep losing your head like that." What does that mean? My hooves felt terribly heavy as I approached the cabinet. It was locked, and the lock was a tricky one. It took a few tries to open, but this was due to the numb dread that was creeping through me. Really? Is the cleaning staff completely lazy? Just look at the state of this room. Hardly sanitary. If a Ministry of Peace inspector were to show up, some pony would be out of a job. I wanted to gallop out, find the source of this voice, and buck it to death. Instead, I opened the cabinet door. Jackpot! Zenith was carefully putting each of the healing poultices and extra strength restoration potions we had found into my saddlebags. We had found less than I had hoped for, but hopefully more than enough. In addition, there was a smaller lockbox which had proven far trickier to open. Inside was an advanced medical spell matrix. I've loaded the Arcanotech device, a peripheral with intricately enchanted gemstones in the center, out of its box and carried it with me. "I'll be right back," I told Zenith, scanning my EFS once again to make sure no other hostiles were in the area. Zenith kept watch, ready to pull me back as I crept forward towards the operating room doors. I moved as stealthily as possible, little Macintosh floating close to me. If the red light on my EFS was another of those horrors, I didn't want it to have the time to turn my way. I hoped it wasn't already facing the door. I nudged open the door and looked around. The operating room was full of gurneys, most of which bore the skeletons of a pony. A few were empty, and one held the bloated, fleshy body of one of the horrors. It was strapped down with an IV needle jabbed into it. The IV tube was less than a yard long and dangled off the creature's bulbous mass, the other end attached to nothing. A bright yellow multi-limbed medical bot hovered from the gurney to gurney, helping its patients. The blob of flesh wiggled. I unloaded 4 shots into it, little Macintosh echoing throughout the floor. The horse seemed to deflate, filling the air with an awful fetid stench like bile and sewage. I had to turn away, covering my muzzle with a hoof, my eyes watering. I galloped back down the hall, stopping in the waiting room and vomiting violently. The acidic taste of bile in my mouth was actually preferable to the smell of the horror's innards. I swallowed and wiped my muzzle, feeling faint. I turned back, trotting to the door again, bracing myself for the suffocating reek. I pushed in, holding my breath as long as I could, and snuck towards the malfunctioning medical bot. I could reprogram it, I believe, routing around the corrupted sectors of its programming, and that the advanced medical spell matrix, it would not only have the medical expertise to help, but be able to utilize a small number of medical spells. Perhaps even ones that Velvet Remedy could learn from it. In the very least, it would be an asset to Junction R7. At best, it could help Velvet Remedy reattach her severed foreleg. But all that was for later, the trip back. Right now, I just needed to shut it off. I walked out of the operating room, my robotic prize wrapped in a magical field and floating next to me. I stopped as I met up with Zenith, and I stared at the vault door beneath the darkened sign reading Isolation. The terminal next to the sealed door was glowing softly. The little pony in my head pranced in eagerly curiosity. It would only take a minute. I hooked my hacking tool into it and went to work. The door changed internally and slid open. Inside was a small room with filing cabinets, a desk, a glowing terminal, and a huge reinforced window, which looked into a slightly larger chamber. The chamber had a single operating table positioned below a ceiling-mounted robotic medical array. A spider-like mass of arms holding scalpels, bone saws, and torturous-looking medical tools protruded down towards the form, still strapped to the table. It was one of the flesh horrors, only this one was dead already. The flesh putrescent, Its tongues had been severed, its body sliced open and partially dissected, I mean. There was one other difference stretched and distorted over the rear of this aberration's mutated flesh was the deformed remnants of a cutie mark. I heard some pony gasp in horror. I think it was me. The observation room was virtually untouched by the centuries. The quake from the megaspell had cracked the window, but it had held. The paint on the walls was peeling, the ceiling sagged a little, covered in a spiderweb crack. The room beyond, however, was missing a corner. The ragged edges suggested a mass of water damage. I wondered if it was caused by the split in the pipes above the nurse's station, but there was similar damage in many parts of the building. I approached the room's terminal and hacked into it. There was an audio file still remaining. The others had been corrupted or purged. I asked it to play, and a mayor's voice, a ghost from the past, came from an overhead speaker. Oh boy. There's no way. There's no way. There's no way. That's not normal. This is Sunny Days, Mayor Pony Consultant of the Ministry of Arcane Science. It is now 2 days since the accident that ended Peachy Pie's life as we knew it. 18 hours since I had ordered the brainstem of this thing severed. Previous attempts to put the creatures down through lethal injection proved futile. Even now, we are still reading life science. This thing does not want to die, but there is no brain function anymore, and hopefully the rest of the body will get the hint. I've ordered the autopsy halted until then. I took comfort in knowing that my childhood friend died 2 days ago and that there was nothing of her in this abomination. I finally managed to get an audience with Ministry Mayor Twilight Sparkle. I've learned that the Ministry of Arcane Science is using my old facility to craft something called the Impelled Metamorphosis Potion. What? According to Twilight Sparkle, this imp will likely become the deciding factor in the war. It is clearly her hope that through medical augmentation, we can bring the war to a swift conclusion. The zebras have been engaging in mystical and alchemical augmentations for years now, and it sounds to me like the Ministry of Arcane Science is determined to beat them at their own game. I questioned Ministry Mayor Twilight Sparkle about the contents of the barrels now being stored in the caverns underneath Splendid Valley. She revealed that these barrels contain effectively the same transformative magical brew that the Ministry of Arcane Science is testing for use on pony volunteers. Now, if I'm correct, that is implying the FEV, the disease, right? That made Trixie into what she is. According to the Ministry Mayor, the process for creating Imp is extremely delicate and demanding, and apparently her standards are even more so. Any batch that is flawed in any way, any batch that is not absolutely optimal, is sealed up and discarded in Twilight Sparkle's own words. If she is going to ask ponies to trust their bodies to imp-induced transformation, how could she dare give them anything but the most perfect version of the potion possible? The Ministry Mayor was absolutely horrified to hear of the accident and appalled as I told her what had happened to Peachy Pie. She put a strict moratorium on any further attempts to move the barrels. It looks like Ministry Mayor Fluttershy is going to have to find a different avenue of negotiation with the Diamond Dogs. Personally, at this point, I'm tempted to just start shooting them. I know that's horrible of me, but I've just spent 2 days seeing the best friend I ever knew reduced to something worse than any nightmare, and all because we're trying to appease a bunch of dogs. The worst part is that part of me blames Peachy Pie. She shouldn't have been down there. She'd come to work sick the last few mornings. I told her to take sick leave, practically ordered her to, but she never could stand to be doing nothing. Part of me wonders if she slipped, or if her judgment was slightly impaired, and I hate myself for asking that. She deserves better. Peachy Pie was the best friend any pony could ever have. Her husband is outside. He wants to see the body. I have no idea what to tell him. All I know is that I can't, absolutely can't, let him see this. I stumbled out of the isolation room and collapsed against the wall, breathing heavily. Little Pip? Zenith asked, her voice deep with concern. She had heard Sunny Day's recording too, and I could see the sadness in her eyes and hear it in her voice. But she didn't know what I knew. Didn't realize what I did. She could tell the recording was affecting me far more than it did her, even if she could not sense the revelation behind it. Taint on the other hoof, Homage had said, as DJ Pawn 3, is a zebra of very different stripes. No pony knows exactly what the taint is or where it comes from, but we know its mutative effects on monsters and the fatally malignant repercussions on ponies. I knew what taint was. I knew where it came from. I knew that as you travel, as you poke your nose into places and memories, you're gonna hear things or learn things about my Twi, Spike had warned me painfully. Taint was imp, impelled metamorphosis potion. This was Twilight Sparkle's other legacy. But that wasn't being fair. Twilight Sparkle had been a good pony with a good heart. Of course the MAS hub in Manhattan had been working on a spell to clean Taint, and it was no longer a surprise that they had been successful when every pony sense, like that insane ghoul doctor, had failed. Twilight Sparkle knew exactly what Taint was, after all. She knew every component that went into it, and after what happened to Peachy Pie, she was not going to be content to just leave that kind of dangerous magical toxin in barrels underground. She was working to clean it up. Of course, the Gardens of Equestria would include the spell to purge Taint from the land. I suspected that Twilight Sparkle would have created a taint-purging mega-spell and set it off over Splendid Valley, just as soon as pony testing of Imp had proven successful. The only variable is, well, dosage. Twilight Sparkle's words floated back to me. The Imp experiment at Maripony required a very tightly controlled dosage. Who knew what the effects of too little would be? The deep itch that had now spread through my entire torso told me I would likely soon learn. Oh gosh, dude, is Little Pip gonna become a super mutant? Super Pip? But that was when they discovered that Twilight's magical byproducts, shall we say, has started eating through the barrels. Rarity had told Rainbow Dash Sunny lost a pony trying to move them when several tore open like they were made of nothing but the covering paint. That horror on the other side of that window was what become of any pony who suffered massive exposure. If that creature had been created from a few barrels, I was thankful that I had never seen Trixie herself inside that vat. And if you got it just right, that was how Trixie was creating the alicorns. I wondered how long had it taken her to find the correct amount, and how many failed experiments she cannibalized before she struck on the perfect dose. My eyes went to the hole in the corner of the far chamber. Peachy Pie had been sick each morning for days. The medical equipment was still picking up anomalous life signs after the creature should have been dead. I knew where the other horrors had come from. Zenith and I galloped all the way back from the roof. I slammed through the doors, stumbling and panting. We've got what we came for. Velvet Remedy was looking decidedly bad, but I thanked the goddesses that she was still conscious. Calamity stood at the edge of the building looking down. I noticed his helmet and his mouth. He had run across and gotten it. That meant I looked to the building across from us. All the hellhounds were gone. The antenna array was smashed to pieces. I crept to the edge, casting a glance first to the Griffin Chaser 2. It still looked like a mess, but I could see the work Calamity had done. Calamity set down his helmet. In case y'all missed it, they're telling us to surrender. Looking down, I saw the hellhounds surrounding the building, some carrying energy weapons, a few dozen carrying torches. Most were armed only with their claws. Standing on the dilapidated wagon was one particularly large female hellhound holding a megaphone. "You come down now," she barked, her voice carrying. "Final chance." I had really hoped we could treat Calamity's wing and Velvet Remedy's leg here, but that was no longer an option. Come on, Calamity. Let's go. "I don't get why they ain't swarmed us yet," Grimly answered. "I do, and trust me, you are so much happier not knowing." He turned from the edge, picking up his helmet again and walking towards Velvet Remedy. His eyes looked older than they had the day before. "Not your fault," Velvet Remedy insisted to the Pegasus as he laid down next to her. He sat down the helmet and nuzzled the charcoal unicorn. "Yes, it is. I'm the one who got his wing shot, and I'm the one who wanted to snipe the hellhounds. Y'all faced all of this shit to help me, and I ain't gonna forget that. Not ever." Suddenly, the whole building shook. A thunderous rending boiled up from beneath us. A massive fissure tore across the roof a few yards back from the south side edge, and the entire southern wall of the hospital collapsed with a monstrous roar. Luna eclipsed gasms. The wind goddess damned hellhounds were taking out the fucking foundation. Out of time, every pony, I shouted as I climbed into the Griffin Chaser 2 and tried to figure out how to operate the Earth Pony contraption. Thankfully, it was rather simple. While the mechanics used a spark battery, augmented assist, the whole thing was basically pedal-powered. And Zebra, I added, gather together. We're leaving. More of the building began to collapse. The roof canted and the Griffin Chaser 2 began to slide towards the ragged edge. I wrapped everyone else in the field of magic, making sure to include the medical bot, Velvet Remedy's leg, Calamity's helmet, and Zenith's sack of medications. I started to pedal as hard as I could. The gears and belts and chains of Griffin Chaser 2 squealed in protest. The blades began to spin. Is it like a little helicopter? With a horrendous rumble, the hospital roof fell away beneath us, the hospital collapsing into billowing clouds of smoke and debris. We didn't fall with it. The clouds of dust puffed up at us. Slowly getting a feel for the flying contraption, I turned us towards Mare Pony and the Sky Bandit. After everything that had come before, there was nothing I could do. Zenith was brewing a potion using a mix of her own supplies and the chemicals we had just gathered. I could smell the odd scents coming from the pot she held over the cook fire. Zenith told us this would augment Velvet Remedy's own healing, allowing her leg to heal fully and properly once it was reattached. I thought it was going to be like turning her into a ghoul. It would also permanently alter her, much like previous brews had altered me. Somehow, while such enhancements should be viewed as a gift, this felt like a sacrifice. A final step in severing Velvet Remedy from who she was before. After this, she really wouldn't be the same pony anymore. I don't see how that makes sense. It's just a little upgrade. Calamity had refused to leave Velvet Remedy's side the entire time I had spent reprogramming the medical bot. While I was at it, I'll admit that I changed the robot's name, considering that what its next operation would be. I didn't feel Sawbones was particularly appropriate. Now it was up to the medical bot and Velvet Remedy to treat both her and Calamity. I could only sit back and watch, and I didn't think I could bear to do that. We were for the moment safe. The Alicorns were creating a perimeter around Mare Pony, and the Hellhounds seemed to be taking the rest of the night off. I pulled up my Pitbox inventory sorting spell, looking for the memory orb I had found in the hospital. I was shocked to find a tin of Partytime Mentos amongst my supplies. For a moment, I couldn't remember how I had gotten there. I ordered the inventory sorted to bury it at the bottom of my saddlebags. The little pony in my head, once an advocate of keeping them, now nickered at me in disappointment. Stupid, inconsistent little pony. I floated out the orb, laying it on the chunk of rubble in front of me, then quickly captured it again as it started to roll. Finding a better place to set it, I focused directly on the orb with my magic. The world melted away. Woo! The world smelled of scented lotions and effectiveness fragrances. The floor beneath me was comfortable, my flanks lounged in a plush carpeting. I felt warmth and weight press against me from the mare wrapped in my forelegs. Her tears soaked into my coat over my breast. I don't think that's right. I could hear from the pony crying, and behind that, soft tinkling music from somewhere up above, and in the other room, a familiar mare's voice was saying, I mean, that's wonderful news, right? Why don't you sound happy? The pony in my forelegs had gentlest yellow coat, a flowing pink mane, and was Fluttershy. But I do deserve it, Fluttershy mumbled against my breast, her body hitching with sobs. The legs holding Fluttershy, had an elegant white coat that was getting mused? I don't know. And I was Rarity. Rarity felt weak from barely contained sadness and exhaustion. I knew all too well her eyes burned on the edge of tears, but she was holding them back, remaining strong for the yellow Pegasus in her embrace. Fluttershy wailed meekly, I am a traitor. I don't believe that, I heard my host say gently. Rainbow Dash was. Fluttershy turned her face up to me, her eyes overflowing with tears. Rarity, I gave mega spells to the zebras. I felt my host tense, her eyes growing wide, but still she didn't let Fluttershy go. She held her voice shocked, but her tone non-judgmental as she asked, Why would you do that? Fluttershy gave a rushed speak as she felt Rarity tense. Her expression told me she expected to be rejected, pushed away, maybe worse. But there was a tone of resolve in her voice when she answered. To stop the war. Rarity shook her head. How? You remember that test I have? You remember the test? I have healing spells that mega spells will let heal almost anything. Zebras have potions that allow them to regenerate wounds, and mega spells will make their whole army like that. Have you seen Twilight's new shield spell? A mega spell shield could protect a whole city. Fluttershy looked at her unicorn friend, fierce determination shining behind those large eyes that were swimming in tears. If both sides had mega spells, we wouldn't be able to kill each other anymore. They'd have to stop fighting. I felt Rarity shudder, a knot forming in her throat. The tears she had been holding back began to flow. She knew I could tell that such was not the way. Either side would use the gift. Oh, Fluttershy, as the first tear raced down her right cheek, Rarity leaned forward, brushing aside the flowing pink mane that obscured most of Fluttershy's face and planted a kiss on the Pegasus pony's forehead. You always were the best of us. She hugged the Pegasus tighter. Never, ever regret what you've done, darling. She held Fluttershy's head against her breast so the Pegasus could not see her weeping. Is she gonna kill her? In the background, I could hear the other voice saying, what? Oh no. My sister is fine. I recognize the voice of Sweetbelle now. We're at the spa on Leafball Lane. Rarity's been here all afternoon trying to get Fluttershy to stop crying. Fluttershy shuddered, whimpering. Rarity, I can't breathe. Her meek, hesitant tone suggested that she'd accept if Rarity just kept squeezing her. Oh, I thought Rarity was gonna kill her. Rarity let go quickly. Oh, Fluttershy, I'm so sorry, she got up quickly, turning away. Before the Pegasus could see her tears, I need to freshen up a bit. Will you be okay until I get back? Fluttershy squeaked but nodded. My host trotted quickly for a little mare's room. Only the way she passed an anxious-looking spa pony, stopping Rarity whispered, Remember, you're closed. I'm very sorry. And the Ministry of Image will pay you triple your lost earnings, but we really can't be disturbed right now. Before the spa pony could respond, Rarity nearly galloped the rest of the way, pushing through the door to the ladies' restroom. As the door swung shut behind her, I could hear Sweetbelle saying, Fluttershy say that Rainbow Dash called her a traitor? Wrong person. Rarity's nerves felt fried. She was shedding tears, and it was making it difficult to see, but the sight of her in the mirror looked sad and terrified. Her horn was glowing, and something floated out of her side purse. She wiped her eyes with the forehoof to better see the framed picture. It was the ministry mares all together, looking much younger, maybe my age. They were looking disheveled but happy, wearing once elegant dresses that appeared to have been worn through a wrestling match. There was Spike, too. But not Spike as I had ever known or imagined him. Baby Spike! They were all gathered around a round table covered in what looked like donut crumbs. I don't think I can take this anymore. I was nothing before you. You're the best friends a pony could have. The best ponies ever. Rarity choked up. And it feels like I'm losing all of you. Rarity's whole body shuddered. She looked up in the mirror and was shocked by what she saw. Turning on the sink, she splashed the water onto her face and tried to wash away any trace of her sadness. Looking back up, she drew herself up tall. Stop feeling sorry for yourself, Rarity. Fluttershy needs you. Her horn glowed again, opening her purse and lifting up the picture. The door pushed open. Rarity turned a natural-looking smile already forced onto her muzzle. Her eyes widened upon seeing Sweetbelle looking mournful. Sis, I'm sorry to interrupt, but... Yes, Rarity said with a hopeful cheer. I knew she didn't feel. Applejack's been in an accident. I could feel Rarity's body tense. An accident? Is she all right? She's in a coma, but the doctors say she'll recover, Sweetbelle told her oldest sister regretfully. At the word coma, Rarity's magic imploded, the framed picture dropping to the floor with a clatter. Applebloom says Twilight Sparkle's on her way to see them. She wants to know if you and Fluttershy can come see Applejack too. Rarity swayed, forcing her voice not to waver. She informed her little sister, Of course we will. Fluttershy and I will head to Manhattan right away. She gave her sister a smile. And will you be coming too? Sweetbelle nodded. I've already made arrangements. There's a train leaving in an hour. The younger unicorn slipped back out, closed the door behind her. I'll see you there. The moment Rarity was alone again, the usual elegant unicorn swayed on the verge of fainting. As she braced herself against the sink, her eyes fell to the picture on the floor. A slight crack now ran down the glass, separating Pinkie Pie Fluttershy from Rainbow Dash and Twilight Sparkle. The unicorn mare whimpered softly. Her magic wrapped around the pictures and tucked it back into her purse, then drew out the familiar headset. She touched her hoof to the ear bloom. Rarity turned to the mirror, looking at herself. A look of sad determination crossed her face. A voice cracked over the ear bloom. Hello, Ministry of Image? Mistress Rarity's office. This is Rarity. Contact the Ministry's top magician. Tell him I've changed my mind, and I will need his services on that special project after all. Oh my god, dude, this is the rise of Rarity's villain arc. Dude, she can't take it anymore. Her Joker phase has begun. The trip back was long and occasionally eventful one, but it was only in trying to look back on it afterwards that things became strange. Calamity's wing had mended beautifully, but at our instance, he made regular stops to rest. Velvet Remedy fared both better and worse. Eek! What's up? Her foreleg was encased in a thick, rigid cast that prevented her from walking. She was extremely weak and in dire need of rest and recovery. Velvet, go to sleep, Zenith intoned, carefully using her unicorn companion's name. Breath of the Phoenix takes time to do its work. Goddess Velvet, I chimed in. You're worse than, well, all of us. When you give us medical ponies orders. You missed a lot. Velvet Remedy got her leg blown off or slashed off. So, yeah, that was interesting. And, yeah. Velvet Remedy ignored us, instead cooing at Pyrelight and nuzzling her wings softly. Hear that, Pyrelight, darling? Zenith's little brew has made me part Phoenix. Isn't that wonderful? It is just a name, Zenith sighed. Velvet Remedy continued to play with Pyrelight, with who fluttered about my beautiful friend with an unconcealed joy at her survival. The Balefire Phoenix kept perching on Velvet's cast, which I couldn't imagine was really helping. I itched and I really didn't like that. I swore to myself that the very first thing I would do upon returning to Ten Pony Tower was find homage and promise whatever I had to in order to get that taint purging spell cast on me. I feared it might already be too late. Well, first thing would be to set my friends up in a luxury suite where Velvet could get some damn rest. If you don't go right to bed when we get to Ten Pony, I swear I'm gonna tie you to that bed. Ooh, saucy. Velvet would like that. Velvet Rhodey's eyes wide, then narrowed. She gave me a sultry look. Oh, little Pip, you tease, but really, that's your cake, not mine. I sputtered. It was most definitely not my cake. Thankfully, Velvet Remedy turned her spotlight on Zenith. Yesterday, when that siren went off, were you hearing it just in your ears? Velvet Remedy asked. The zebra gave her an odd look. I didn't blame her, finding the question equally strange until I heard Zenith's answer. How else would I be hearing that dreadful noise? She seemed to consider. I haven't felt sounds before, low vibrating rumbles, but this was no such sound. No, heck no. It's not. This is live. It says live when you click on it. It's live. Velvet Remedy nodded and looked to the rest of us. It shook me a moment, but when the realization hit me, it seemed so obvious that I was looking down the scope of Little Macintosh as the zombie pony came into view. A slight squeeze of the trigger, Little Macintosh roared. The creature's head exploded. I turned, checking for any more of the flesh-eating zombies, but my EFS compass was clean of red. I floated my weapon away, feeling it pang. It was tragic and terrible that these zombies were once living ponies who had become trapped, imprisoned in decaying bodies and minds, slowly tortured by the rotting insanity that turned them into mindless monsters, bent on devouring other ponies. Yet part of me remembered all too horrifically that there were even worse fates. True. Could always be worse. I turned back to eating my soup. The others were sitting back down to dinner as well. Twilight was fading. The ruins of the old power substation loomed over us. We had chosen it because the crumbling walls would shield the light of our cook fire. Calamity had wanted to push the rest of the way to Manhattan, but yielded to our persuasions. Zenith stirred the pot again, offering Velvet another helping. Firelight had flown off hunting the moment the Sky Bandit touched down, and Velvet had been anxious about her since the first zombie pony appeared. I heard hoofsteps and a clattering sound approaching, followed by heavy, ragged breathing that didn't sound like any pony. Waving to the others, I floated out the zebra rifle and brought to my EFS again. Again scanning the area for hostile life. No red, but there were several approaching non-hostile entities. I breathed a sign of relief. Several minutes later, the traveling merchant moved into the light of our campfire. Upon seeing us, she froze, eyes darting for each of my very heavily armed, I suddenly realized, party. The two-headed cattle carrying her wares mooed plaintively behind her. Calamity flew over, causing the merchant to take a step back, but he was all smiles and a hearty hoofshake. Howdy there. Been ages since I've seen any sort of caravan. I'd be much obliged if y'all would join us for soup. I promise it's mighty tasty. He leaned forward and whispered loudly, I didn't cook it. The merchant smiled, the tension in her body melting away. Thank you kindly. She hitched her cattle to a trash bin and trotted over to join us. I guessed as a large beast pushed past the cattle and lumbered in after her, growling softly. What is that? Velvet Remedy stammered wide-eyed. The merchant laughed. Oh, don't you mind, Cuddles. He really is a friendly bear, unless y'all are raiders. The pony smiled. A lady can't be wandering the wasteland without a friend, you know. There's some bad folk out there. Yaogwai. How do you pronounce that? Yaogwai? I don't know. Yaogwai? I don't know. Zebra whispered strangely to Velvet. I've never met such a beast before, Velvet Remedy said, still wide-eyed. Well, truth be told, I never met neither a Pegasus nor a zebra before, the merchant replied good-naturedly as Zenith offered her a bowl of soup. Thank you, miss. What brings you out this way? Calamity asked curiously. Doing the new run between Shattered Hoof and Manhattan, the merchant pony said with a smile. Figure I ought to get in on the new action before every pony does. Suddenly, Calamity took to the air, darting back to where the Sky Bandit was parked. We all watched as he returned with his saddlebags and started pulling out seemingly random junk. Everything from old boxes to instant mashed potatoes to a small caliber firearms that were quite frankly beneath us. Wait, when exactly did any lethal ranged weapons become beneath us? Where did you find those? Velvet Remedy asked. When did you find them? I thought we had sold everything non-essential at 10 Pony Tower. Scavenging Old Olneigh, Calamity replied as he started to pick up the best things to barter with while Velvet Remedy just shook her head. She got up and hobbled over, nudging him aside and rearranging his selection. I will now tell you a secret, said Zenith as she leaned close to the Pegasus. It is both possible and permissible to pass by a filing cabinet or a garbage barrel without looking inside. I faced up as Calamity turned to her with wide, mock-amazed eyes. Really? How? I ain't learned that trick, obviously. I found myself smiling at that. A thought struck me. Hey, Calamity, can we take a swing by Shattered Hoof on our way? I want to talk to God. Gosh, I freaking love God's name. It just works. I frowned as Velvet Remedy once more submersed herself in the original Fluttershy orb. I knew now that Steelhooves hadn't quite been right about the yellow Pegasus, but he'd still been close enough for me to worry for my friend, especially with the strain physically and mentally that this week had put Velvet Remedy under. Losing your leg would do that to you, I would only imagine. She'd come chillingly close to dying, twice, and even if there were no visible scars or lasting physical damage from the loss of her leg, the psychological impact would not heal with magical ease. Her alteration under Zenith's brew showed no outward signs, but I could not imagine that it was not weighing on her as well. All this on top of the horrors of the Stable 2 massacre. I looked away, tracing my right forehoof over the metal door of the Sky Bandit. Metal floor. No Sky Bandit. We are nearing Shattered Hoof. I could see the lights of it in the darkness. I pushed my thoughts in other directions, purposefully distracting myself. I thought of the orbs I had seen yesterday for the life of me. I couldn't imagine how or why the Leaf-Fall Lane Spa memory had ended up locked in that cabinet. Most of the time, locations of the memory orbs I found struck me as completely logical. This one did not. They don't strike me as being logical at all. They're found in some of the weirdest places. And why is it always about the main 6 too? The other orb did, although it took me a while to puzzle it out. The Steel Rangers had likely been trying to make their way to the hospital roof, led by the robed unicorn mayor and their party. With the information in that orb, they could have gotten a fix on the location of the central hub of the single Pegasus project, whatever that happened to be. As for Rarity's reason to make a recording of the memory, I chose to believe that the moment Rainbow Dash asked her to design the Enclave armor was a happy moment for her. She was at heart a dressmaker, and finally her job, her beloved hobby, had united. After a fashion, no pun intended, I could imagine the graceful elderly unicorn wanting to relive that moment again and again, especially as things began to fall apart for her friends. Not unlike Velvet Remedy. Okay, little Pip, Calamity called out. We're heading in. The Pegasus was in good mood. He was flying again. Velvet was going to be okay, and he'd even gotten to chat with the caravan merchant and barter, or more precisely, watch Velvet Remedy barter. I had been surprised how many little items he had managed to scavenge from Old Olneigh, while the rest of us were focused on just moving through. I wasn't the only one with the vice. Incoming Griffins, Calamity called out. I brought up my EFS and verified that they were friendly. A moment later, Blackwing and her talons flew into view, circling and pulling up alongside us. Little Pip and friends, she said. I felt my cheeks redden. Why was it never Calamity and friends, or Velvet Remedy and friends? I wondered for what seemed like the billionth time. Of course, by now, I knew the answer. I had Homage and my companions to thank for it. Yeah. Yay. Blackwing, I said, brushing off my embarrassment to talk to the Griffin. I was hoping to see you. I have something I need to ask you for, and I hoped we could come to an arrangement. Oh? The Griffin Merc raised an eyebrow. This should be good. I woke up finding myself staring at the familiar ceiling of Dr. Helping Hoof's clinic. Only this time, at least, I wasn't bound. I knew better than to get up too fast. Instead, I cleared my throat loudly. The voices beyond the partition stopped and a shadow approached. Dr. Helping Hoof pushed aside the partition and eyed me curiously. When I said I could make a tidy profit off of you, I did not mean that as an encouragement. Velvet Remedy pushed past him, wobbling as she tried to walk with just 3 legs. Her eyes were narrowed and her voice was cross. I was completely expecting this. I can't believe you, she nearly shouted. After everything we've been through, you used them again? I had to, I said evenly. It was the only way to make sure Red Eye listened. But it was just a one-time thing, and I sought treatment immediately. I leveled gaze at her. On my own, I could point out. One time? Of course, until the next time you decide you need them, Velvet seethed. Little Pip, haven't you learned anything? You can't do just one time. I winced. She was right. I was playing with fire, even though I knew I was soaked in whiskey. Please, I know this is bad, but it was really important. I know this will make it harder for me, so I'm going to need you. Let me see, she demanded. Dr. Helping Hoof had politely backed away. See? Your goddess damned inventory sorter, Little Pip, Velvet Remedy barked. I want to see for myself that you didn't keep any. A shout of fear went through me. I lifted my pip bug for her to see, praying that I actually had tossed the damn tin of Party Time Mint dolls into a burning trash barrel the moment I trotted out of the encampment. I prayed that my addiction and the little pony in my head hadn't somehow played tricks with my memory. I was going to be doing too much of that on my own. Okay, fine, Velvet said as she looked through my inventory and thankfully found no sign of Party Time Mint dolls. And you better believe I will be going through your things back in the other room, and quite regularly from now on. I nodded. Thank you, Velvet. You've proven you can't be trusted, she snapped, her words wounding me, even more so because I deserved it. Ouch, deep throat. Lady gets her leg cuts off and just starts snapping at you. Dang, that's rough. Dr. Helping Hoof's assistant trotted forward, smiling indulgently. Velvet Remedy looked to the white unicorn black with the candy red and scarlet striped mane. Will it hurt? Velvet asked, sounding worried, shooting me a dark look. She added, not that she doesn't deserve it a little. Turning back to the white unicorn, Velvet admitted, she's been through so much, I don't want her to have to suffer anymore. Don't worry, the unicorn said. She won't remember any pain. Turning to me, she asked, are you ready to do this? I nodded. Let's get it over with. I slowly pulled myself out of bed and followed him. As we walked away, I heard Velvet Remedy moan, "You're going to destroy yourself trying to save the entire wasteland, little Pip." Ah, classic, I know, right? Never, never gets old. That's so Velvet. A piercing white light above me died, and I found myself in darkness staring up at an unfamiliar ceiling inlaid with strangely patterned white mirrors. I was laying back in a chair, a bizarre and uncomfortable position, and I had absolutely no idea how I had gotten here. The last time I remembered was being in Helping Hoof's clinic. I seem to recall that I had been treated for party time mental use, and voluntarily at that. I cringed, my mind filling with shame as I remembered taking that tin from the nurse's station. I was humiliated and disgusted with myself from the weakness I gave into every time I could throw it away. But for the life of me, I couldn't remember actually taking one. Or for that matter, I didn't remember volunteering for treatment, although I could remember acting as if I had once it was over. A deep alien terror started to envelop me as I tried to entrance my actions, only to find my memories of even the flight back to the piecemeal at best. Ever since leaving Maripony, my sense of time had become Swiss cheese, but the scattered moments I did remember didn't leave me with the impression that I had been losing time. A familiar white unicorn buck appeared leaning over me, his scarlet and candy red mane draping so that it almost touched my face. His mane reminded me of Pinkie Pie's at the party, after it had seemed to deflate. Don't panic. Where am I? How did I get here? Who are you? The question tumbled out of me as fast as I could form them. The unicorn raised a silencing hoof, but I didn't want to be silenced. What happened to me? I felt another hoof touch my shoulder as Homage stepped around the chair. Relax, love. My eyes darted between them, my emotions in turmoil. Little Pip, Homage asked, do you trust me? The answer shot through all my dismay and confusion. Yes. Homage whispered, then still your thoughts, love. Relax. She helped guide me off the chair into her embrace. I pressed myself against her, breathing hard, trying to find a way to piece into the storm of panic that threatened to overwhelm me. Her scent became a life preserver tossed into my ocean of distress, and the rope with which to pull myself to safety. Slowly, I relaxed. Little Pip, this is Life Bloom, Homage said, finally introducing me formally to the white unicorn with the red and scarlet mane and tail. I'm pleased to meet you again, Life Bloom said. Velvet Remedy and Homage have told me so much about you. I nodded slowly, piecing a little together. You are Dr. Helping Hoof's assistant, right? The one that Velvet Remedy has been buying medical spells from? Indeed I am. Homage stroked my mane gently, as if she could brush out the little shakes I was feeling. You remember what I told you about ponies who really run Ten Pony Tower? Life Bloom is one of them. The unicorn buck bowed with a smile. And you are the stable dweller whom DJ, Pon3, and Homage have woven into a bringer of light. I flushed with embarrassment, looking away. And humbly, the buck said with a smile, that is a good sign. And humble. Turning back to him, I asked again, this time more slowly, where am I and what happened to me? The unicorn's horn glowed a brilliant crimson. A small box floated into view. I recognized the kind of box it was, the kind of which held memory orbs. These, little Pip, are yours. Mine? It took me a breath to grasp what he was saying. They're my memories? Of the last couple days, Homage said in agreement. I reeled. I'd lost days? What? Why did you remove them? Because you asked me to, Life Bloom said, and because Homage persuaded me it was for a good cause. Bro, what? Bro just got their memory turned into Swiss cheese. What the heck happened? Oh my god. Life Bloom is a bit of a magical protege. Takes to new spells like no pony I'd ever seen. He's the only unicorn in Ten Pony Tower to have mastered the old memory spells once used by the Ministry of Morale. Homage informed me he's also the one who can cast the Taint Purge. Looking at me knowingly, Homage followed that little revelation up with, so, how are you feeling? I stopped, assessed myself. I felt tired, strained. The burns on my flank and side had been healed, but were still tender. The deep, unsettling itch was gone. There may be minor mutations Life Bloom announced, but nothing life-threatening, or even, I suspect, life-changing. I'm pretty certain that we purged you in time. I felt my knees give out as a sudden rush of gratefulness weakened me. Oh, thank you. The box of memory orbs came with a note in my own tooth writing. Little Pip, the memory orbs inside the box are in order. The first is pretty much a table of contents, and the others are most of your memories from the last few days. The three important ones that I think I will want to relive are orbs 4, 6, and 8. Everything else is just long, dull fights and routine stuff. I don't think you, really need to spend hours trapped in a memory orb just so we can relive our bowel movements or hours of feeling itchy. Oh my god, that sounds horrible. Don't watch any of these until I get the black book and take it to Mayor Pony, please. I know that's going to be really hard for me and you, but it's important. Yours yourselfly, Little Pip. Oh, that's adorable. Oh, that's adorable. From me to you. From me to me. Yours yourself, Little Pip. That's adorable. I think that's extremely cute. That's such a cute little letter. I read it again and again, but it still made no sense. I looked at the orbs. I wanted my memories back. I wanted to know what I did over the last 2 days. I needed to know why I had taken party time mentals again. What could possibly have been so dire as to make me do that? A bluish sheath of magic closed the lid, removing the memory orbs from my sight, and floated the box out of my hooves. Homage magically lifted it, placing it into her safe and locking it. The huge painting of Splendid Valley floated back into its place. She turned towards me, smiling. Now, how soon do you have to go? I shook my head, completely at a loss. I felt untethered adrift. I didn't know what my plans were, what I was supposed to be doing next. Probably stopping the giant gestalt consciousness? Anyways, all I did know was that Velvet Remedy needed time to recuperate. In reality, so did Calamity. Maybe all of us did. I hated the idea of spending another day on myself when there were ponies in the equestrian wasteland suffering and dying because I wasn't there to help them. But this wasn't time spent for me. This was for my friends, and I couldn't do anything without them. I needed them now, more than ever. I think we can take a day or two, I said hesitantly, but no more than that. Homer smiled. Perfect. I'll start dinner. Oh, how sweet. I remembered something. 31? How could you do that to me? Because I know your body like the beautiful instrument it is, she called back as she made her way into the kitchen, and I coaxed the most beautiful music. What does that mean? I felt myself go weak. Not what I meant. I looked around, wondering suddenly where Zenith was. Hello, me. Welcome to my memories. I was looking at myself in a full-length mirror. I could see Lifebloom and Homage moving about in the background. The room was dark and strangely shaped with an odd chair in the center beneath a shining spotlight. Mirrored inlays on the ceiling caught the light as it bounced back off the chair, making the lines of the mirror seem to glisten. This is just the table of contents, I told myself. It's okay to watch just this one. I felt utterly confused, and I needed at least a little context. Honestly, if you think about it, these little memory orbs are like VR+. These memory orbs are what VR games are supposed to be like. If you like get real down into the like nitty-gritty of the concept of it. If you are not me, then these memories are not for you, I felt myself say with what was actually my own mouth. This was supremely weird. I was riding me. Please do not watch any more of them, and return them immediately to DJ Pon3 or his assistant at 10 Pony Tower. That deep itching was gone. I had stood in front of this mirror saying these things after Lifebloom had used the Taint Purge spell on me. Now, assuming I am me, and this is supremely weird, and I thought writing this note felt bizarre, I paused, apparently regathering my train of thought. Did I usually ramble like this? Okay, the first big thing you need to know. I stopped again. I felt my body deflate with a sigh. Damn it, Little Pip, I said, stomping. I'm watching this before I told me to, aren't I? I felt a rush of embarrassment as I realized I had caught me. So, okay, that is not okay. We do not read that. I felt myself stop again, felt myself huffing. This entire memory was too surreal. Damn it, okay. Sorry for if I'm watching this when I should be. If so, I owe myself an apology. Taking a deep breath, I stared again. I'm going to make this short, just in case I'm the kind of idiot I'm afraid I am. I gave myself a dark look, then continued. First, by now you've already figured out that there are two kinds of memory spells. The first records a memory, like the spell enchanted into a recollector. The second extracts a memory completely. That's the kind that the Ministry of Morale used when they weren't being gentle. I felt myself frowning, and little Pip in the mirror frowned back. Second, I've got a plan for dealing with the goddess. I've told every pony their parts, and just their parts. I'm the only pony who knows all of it. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about the goddess, and we can't even reach Maripony. And if I go in knowing the plan, Trixie can read it right out of my head. Game over. So, I felt myself lift a foreleg and make a sweeping motion as the little Pip in the memory did exactly that. Crap. I knew I was right. Other me. That is ugh. So for the love of Celestia and Luna, for the love of homage, don't watch any more of the damn memory orbs until after you take the black book to Maripony. I stopped with the huff. Seriously, I am so disappointed in me. Then sheepishly I added, that is assuming I should be, if I really held out like I told me to. I really have an egg on my face right now, don't I? I felt utterly guilty and pissed at myself. Now, for the fourth memory orb is my conversation with Blackwing. I'm sure I'll need to know the deal we struck. The sixth one I'll need to know for entirely different reasons. That's the one where I took a party time mental. I'm beginning to question if that was the right call, but I really needed to be at my most persuasive. You'll see. The eighth memory orb was being greeted by homage as we returned to the tower. And that one, I know I'll want to relive again and again. I gave myself a wink. Footnote, maximum level. Quest perk added, touched by taint level 1. Exposure to taint has altered your physiology. When under the effects of advanced radiation poisoning, 400 plus rads, any crippling limbs will automatically begin to regenerate. Oh my god, that's awesome. Oh my god. Oh my god. What a fun series. Yeah, if you can get, like, past the weird moments, it's such a fun series. Oh, this next one's gonna be even shorter. Oh, shoot. What a good day for me. Good day for me. That is awesome. I love having to do less reading. I'm not gonna do those ones today, though, because this has gone on a little bit long enough. So, thank you folks for watching. I'm going to start another stream up after this, so if you want to go catch that, and it'll be in a couple minutes from now. So yeah, thank you for watching this, folks, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace!